Hello, Michael. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Martin. I'm doing awesome. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. It's a weird time, right? Like first time we do it at this time. It's interesting. So let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. So, hello to everybody and welcome to AGTP. We go live every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time in the United States to discuss the most important tech stories in the US. It's Monday, Martin, the 20th of July, 2026. Let's get right to it. We're going to talk about Moonshot AI, pauses Kimi K3 subscriptions, maybe just because it's way too popular. Later in the show, we're going to be joined by Jack Davis, the co-CEO at Byte'm. This should be interesting, actually, to explore how technology can help consumer brands improve operations, distribution, and customer relations. And finally, Tim Darrah, co-founder and CEO at Mangrove, is going to join us to talk about how AI-governed digital asset infrastructure can help wealth managers offer automated investment strategies with greater control and greater accountability. Well, Martin, we're back here with Kimi K3. So let's just run through
Yes.
this, yeah?
Yes.
So Moonshot AI, we know they released Kimi K3, what was it, on Friday or on Thursday last week? And the whole idea was this thing was going to be open weight, although those weights were not going to be released until July 27th, but they wanted people to sign up and blah, blah, blah. Now Moonshot is temporarily stopping to accept new Kimi K3 subscriptions after demand pushed its available computing capacity close to its limits within 48 hours. Yeah. So existing subscribers, they still had access to it. And the company redirected resources towards service stability and prepared separate plans for general users and developers because they wanted to make sure they had the right level of compute for each one of those different users. Because to be fair, if I were using Kimi K3, I don't need the same level of compute that you need if you were using K3 to do all the development stuff. All right, that makes sense, yeah?
Yes. First of all, what I love with this announcement is that they only pause for the new subscribers, right? It looks like
Yeah.
they are, I don't know, they are looking at what's going on and they are making sure that all of their clients have normal access, because that's what they say, right?
Yep.
They say, hey, we
Yep.
don't want to disrupt our existing clients. We don't want anything to change for them. We are just so basically, because we don't have enough compute, we're gonna pause the new signups until we figure this thing out, basically. Which is great. I mean, I really love that. Like, plus the tone of the post, like it really feels like, yeah, we just like very sorry, thank you very much for your patience. Like they use a language, where it looks like they care, like it looks like they don't really don't want to like disrupt your workflow if you're a client. If you're using our product, we don't want to change anything. We just pause for the new client until we figure this thing out, and thank you for your patience. I think this is really good, and this is exactly what, once again, Anthropy didn't do at all back in February or March when they had all the problems, and we knew where it led, right? That it led to a lot of people complaining, a lot of people going to codecs. So I would say they learned probably, Kimi, like from this bad experience, and now they do something that makes them even more desirable, right? Which is, I think, really good.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the things here is that just because the model is performs really well, and look, we saw the statistics about this on Friday, right? We talked about it on Friday, how it ranked number one
Yep.
in the coding benchmark, and we can talk a little bit more about that as well. But it doesn't mean that it makes it scalable.
Yes, true.
Do you know what I mean?
True, true,
Like,
true, true. Yes.
and again, it feels to me like some of these models are not 100% sure what that demand is going to be,
Mhm.
right? And they're always sort of underestimating it, right? And this idea of this access to advanced processors just remains a constraint, I think, for everybody.
Mhm, mhm.
What do you think? I mean, is that fair?
I think it makes sense in a way, because compute today must be crazy expensive, right? I think like we don't know because we are not buying GPUs, we're not buying chips, we are not renting data centers. But if you have data centers right now, Michael, what do you do, right? Like, what do you do?
I don't know. Do they
Do you
have
like
dynamic pricing? You raise the prices, I guess, don't you?
you
Which would
you
be
you
silly, but still.
you 10x the price, right? I think so. So that's why I think right now, if you haven't planned for your compute 5 years ago, which basically none of them did,
Right.
then to get new compute right now, it must be crazy expensive. So I think it makes sense from a business standpoint to say, look, we're gonna wait for the demand before we commit to a long contract. Plus, announcement we see on the compute side, it's always, yeah, we signed this 12 months deal with this 5 years deal for compute, right? So once again, if I'm selling chips, if I'm selling data centers, and I know that OpenAI can sign a 5-year contract, I'm gonna ask for a 5-year contract to everybody. And now you get locked up into this big deal, which I think makes sense if you wait a little bit just to make sure that the demand is actually here, right? So I think from a
Right.
business standpoint, it makes sense. From a marketing standpoint, this type of messages just make them more
Desirable.
desirable. Like let's say it this way: like between the model is too dangerous to be released, we can't give you access, or we don't want to disrupt our existing clients, and so we post the new subscription. Which one do you prefer? It's super simple. It's super straightforward, right? As a client, I want that, right? Because now I know that if I sign up to Kimi tomorrow, they are going to take care of me. They are going to make sure that I can always use my products. They show care here. And this is exactly the problem that we have with the Frontier Lab in the US. It looks like there's so many problems. So when they do something like this, it has the same impact. We can't have access to it, same impact, but they also show cares, which is really good to me.
Yeah. Do you wonder, like, we've heard a lot of news recently, I think it was in February and then recently, about DeepSeek saying that they were going to raise $7 billion, right? First at a
Yeah.
50 something billion dollar valuation, and then at a 70 something billion dollar valuation.
Mhm.
We've really heard nothing about Moonshot raising money, right? Apparently they've raised 5 point something billion dollars at a $30 billion valuation, but they're already talking with Goldman Sachs and CICC, so that's China International Capital Corporation, about potentially doing a listing in Hong Kong.
Mhm.
But do you think, just based on our experience with some of these other open weight models and the response of DeepSeek to, again, increasing demand for their product, do you think that they'll go through another capital raising?
You mean instead of IPOing?
Well, before the IPO, remember, how did the
Okay.
investors make money?
Ah.
Do we need to go over this again?
So Minimax and ZAI are already public in Hong Kong,
Yep.
right? I
Yep.
think Minimax they are slightly down since the IPO, but ZAI they are like massive, massive,
$700
massive
billion
public.
valuation, right?
Something like this, something like
Yeah,
insane.
something huge. Yeah.
Even though I think they take a little bit of a hit in the last few days. I didn't check recently, but I think they are a little bit down from their highest high.
Fair enough.
But so they are already published. It's doing okay for them and very good for the AI. So yeah, I really don't know what's like how hungry they are in China when it comes to raising money and all of these crazy things that we see in the US. Do you think they do the same thing, or do you think it's very different?
So I think it's super different the way this stuff
Okay.
works. And I think part of the reason why is because a lot of this stuff is managed in conjunction with, not by, but in conjunction with the Chinese government, right? With Beijing.
Mhm.
Um, I don't remember when Z.AI or Zipu.ai went public, so I can't comment on that. Um, but I do know that they're deeply involved in what's happening with DeepSeek. I know that they're deep right in and trying to convince them where to list, whether it's in Shanghai or in Hong Kong. I don't think they're not. I think they're going to do the same thing with Moonshot as well, and I don't think that's going to be a big surprise to anybody. And I think if they want to show, right, so the popularity of this model and also the efficacy of this model is now being proven, right? Because why would people sign up for it? And if you've watched the commentary on Twitter and frankly on LinkedIn over the past few days, you've seen a lot of people say, hey, I was testing Kimi K3 and it's better at this and it's better at that, right? Because remember, the benchmarks themselves are great. It allows you to make apples to apples comparisons, but it doesn't work in the real world necessarily, right? Just because it's great at a coding test doesn't mean it's great at coding in your environment. Doesn't mean it's
Yes.
great at coding for your specific nuanced ecosystem. But a lot of people have come out. A lot of people that I know actually have come out, including people that have been on the show and said, "Hey, I tested Kimi K3 over the weekend. It was actually better than I expected," kind of thing. And I think that that was driving a lot of the subscription stuff. The question you have to ask though about the funding is who, because you saw what happened in the United States with OpenAI and with Anthropic. The
Mhm.
favored investors were allowed to or forced Anthropic in some cases to put money in so that they could make money on the IPO. Now, whether that happens or not is a different story. You know, the one thing we have not checked today, Martin, which we normally do because our stuff is not running. Oh, Martin, are you sitting down?
Tell me.
Wait. Before we need to make sure that everybody who's listening is sitting down. 120 spot 58.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And
Oh
it's
wow is right.
minus 2.75% today only. In the last 5 days, minus 14.42%. 1 month minus 22%. And that's not even from the highest high.
No. This is yeah, it's
120 start to be really low,
huh? well, at one what was it, 135, it was $1.75 trillion.
Yeah.
Or $1.5 trillion. I can't remember anymore what the number was. But at 120, just remember, you had people buying at 180, you had people paying 170, you had people paying 200, you had people paying 211. What are they doing now?
You think they will
Anyway,
sell right now?
I think they're getting nervous for sure. Like I'd love to see I can't see a volume chart, so I can't tell. But the reason why we're talking about this again is because this is a proxy for the rest of the stuff that's happening. But also, it just goes to show you how differently this stuff gets managed in the United States than how it gets managed in China. Right. So
Yes.
you remember before the SpaceX IPO as well, remember all the news we were reading was like retail's only going to get 20% of the desired stuff that they do, because when they go out and do the road shows, they just try to convince people that this is going to be the be all and end all stock. And SpaceX may end up being like a fabulous company, but it's not going to be a fabulously performing stock for the next 6 months. It's
Even
just
for the
not
next
going to be, because their revenues aren't going to be like $35 trillion in the next 6 months, and all the overhang of the stock that's out there, plus the float. We talked about this, right? It was only 4 to 5% of the company. So if a bunch of people just decide they don't want it anymore, particularly retail gets more nervous than institutional investors,
Yeah.
they're going to start selling, because and they may not have the same lockup as well. We already said this could turn into a negative show, and it already has. But I think that what this is telling us is that there may not be a reason for a company like Moonshot to raise extra money prior to the IPO, because they do take the risk then, because their valuation is going to have to increase. No one's going to raise money at the same level or do a down round, right? You know what a down round is, yeah?
Yes.
Meaning raise at a lower valuation. No one's going to do that because the existing investors won't allow it to happen. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, why take the risk that what you would consider to be your premium investors and your desired investors are going to lose money after the IPO? Because you can't guarantee that your valuation is going to go higher. And you already see what's happening in the market in the United States, which again acts as a proxy for the rest of the world. Yeah. So that, I believe, is super negative for this idea that Moonshot is going to go out. Well, 120 spot 38. That's the low of the day. But that Moonshot's going to go out and raise more money to again go help investors. There's not the same system in China and in Hong Kong that exists in the United States. And to be fair, if anybody's going to grift off of this, it's going to be the government or some kind of government entity, and not like, you know what I mean? Not like other private companies. Does that make sense? So to me, they may raise money, but they may raise money under a different auspices for a different reason. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's good insight.
Yeah.
That's good insight, definitely, because it just shows like that it works differently, right? Like in the US or in China. And yeah, I think this is really interesting, right? This is really interesting. But this type of announcement, this type of launch, this type of market acceptance, right? Like, because there's a lot of people who really love this product, is good for them, right? Like, and if they want an IPO, I mean, soon, maybe it's going to help them. I just don't know, like, what are the requirements to list on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange? Is it the same as in the US? You know, they need to do the pre-filing, like the secret pre-filing, and then all of that.
So
Like,
most of these things look alike. They may have different
Okay.
profitability metrics and stuff like that,
okay,
but they want to make sure that the companies that list on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange are just like viable ongoing concerns,
okay,
that they have a track record of performance,
okay.
and that they're not going to drive investors to go bankrupt, right? Because that's bad. It's bad for the stock exchange, and that's one of the reasons why doing this SpaceX thing and giving them all these special benefits was a bad idea. But because now, like, we know, what did we say? Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley ran this IPO, yeah.
Yes.
So now Goldman is going to go and say you need to buy OpenAI or you need to buy Moonshot. Who's going to believe them?
No way, exactly. No way.
Right. So, and CICC is probably one of the biggest investment banks or one of the biggest advisory companies in China. So fair enough. but I don't see anybody trusting Goldman Sachs for the same reasons that they trusted them on SpaceX and the AI story that they were telling. Now, the Kimi story is different. The Moonshot story is different. But again, just because you're telling a different story doesn't mean the new story is trustworthy. We'll have to see what happens there. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, definitely makes complete sense. Makes complete sense. I think this is really interesting to follow, right? Like let's see how it goes. Yeah, super interesting. I like
And
it.
one more thing before we start talking about like the real controversial stuff. But how do you? Well, there may be two more things, right? But how do you think the release? Because again, they're going to release their weights on the 27th, which is next Monday. At least that's what the projected date is. Once you release the weights, how does it change the way the models can get run and then can get optimized, right? Fine-tuned. And does that allow you to run it on your own hardware as opposed to running it on their cloud hardware? Because the problem that they're having now is they don't have enough cloud capacity, enough
Yes.
compute
Yes.
capacity to be able to do it. So how does releasing the weights change the way the model runs and then
Yes.
change the way the necessity for them to have capacity?
Yes. So first of all, just before I answer, Michael, thank you, Peter, for the date because we got it wrong again. And I would
Unbelievable.
say, and I would say we don't really need AI because we have Peter or we have Max or we have like all of our great viewers who
Unbelievable.
every day tell us that we need to update the date. So, so for now, we're gonna rely on you. Thank you very much for paying attention to everything. But yeah, but so I think, Michael, I think what's something that is really interesting right now is that even if they release the weights, I mean, if you release the model in an open weight format, still the vast majority of people still need the subscription to access it because we can't install it, right? Like it's 2.7 trillion parameters model.
2.8 trillion parameters. It's too big. Yeah.
It's way too big, right? Like nobody has the hardware to actually install it. So that's why I keep my main idea, which is this is for the hyperscalers to be able to sell it. So when they release the model open weight, it's actually for Amazon to install that into Bedrock. It's for Google Cloud to install that on their servers. So then the FDEs at Amazon can actually sell it to their clients. I think this is the only workflow that is working at scale right now. And is it going to change? I don't know, right? It really depends on so many factors. And once again, it's part of all the things that people are being at the moment. And we don't know the future. We can just see like, what people are betting on, I would say. So maybe at some point we'll be able to install them, maybe not. I have no idea. But for sure is that Amazon can run it. All the hyperscalers can run it, Huawei, Alibaba Cloud, they all can run it on their own servers because they have compute and they can sell it to their clients. So I think the real question here is more around what's the deal between AWS and Kimi, and Moonshot. What is the deal? Do they need to pay them? Is it a revenue share? Like, how does that work? I really wonder how that works.
Yeah, because we don't know. We don't even know with how it works for Thinking Machines Lab. We don't know how it works with DeepSeek, but we do, and we don't know how it works with Qwen. There are plenty of other models that are running on Bedrock right now. We don't understand like what that model is for AWS. We'd love to have somebody on from AWS just to run us through that, right? Because that would be super interesting to know, and it would help us determine. You're right, like how these models are going to get used. And then what the impact is on a company like Moonshot, how much more capacity that they'll need. Yeah.
But and also like what's the distribution model look like, right? Like how do they actually intend to make money? What's the business model? What is also the adoption from enterprises? Do enterprise need to install it themselves? Do they need to buy a server to do it on-prem? Do they talk to their AWS FDE to actually get some help for them? Do they get a subscription? Like there's a lot of different ways I can use Kimi if I'm an enterprise. I don't need necessarily to go to this subscription. I can go many different ways, and I think this is part of what's super interesting here because is that they are testing and they are involved into so many options, right? You can do a lot of things if you want to install Kimi K3 for your company,
right?
Which means we don't know what's gonna work in 3 years. Companies like Moonshot, they have a lot of options, right? Like maybe that's the Amazon deal that's gonna make their money. Maybe it's the on-prem stuff they are going to start in hardware. Maybe that's the subscription. And there's many different options, right? Which I think is exactly what you should do right now when nobody really knows what's going on. You should be able to have options. And I think the big thing, but I think that's the elephant in the room, is that if you don't have a partner like Amazon, we're gonna distribute your product, how it can get better than that? Like really,
Yeah.
like
But
how
even Copilot, Microsoft is thinking about
exactly
distributing some of these models as well, right?
for
They've made
sure.
this decision to be model agnostic, actually, as long as they're using their
How
cloud stuff, right? So
there is no way anything in the world can be better than having Google, Microsoft, and AWS be able
yes,
to sell your product for you. They already have all the relationship with all the big clients in the world. They have all the trust. They have the compute for you, and they have the engineers and the FDEs who are going to explain to their client what to do. They have everything. Like really, they are giving you the entire distribution on a platter is just insane, right? Like how when we know like how hard it is to get into enterprises, to deploy workflows, to get the trust, to get approval, to go full compliance. Like everybody who have tried to sell something to an enterprise knows what I'm talking about. Amazon are already in, right? Same for
yeah.
Google, same for Microsoft, same for Alibaba Cloud. They are already in, they are trusted, and all the things that I've just said. These guys, they are going to be able to sell for you from the inside, and that's the perfect Trojan horse, but a very nice one. And it's just going to give them millions of salespeople all around the world at no cost. It's
So
just insane.
there's another Trojan horse as well,
Tell
Martin,
me.
which you've mentioned many times before. There are 1.5 billion iPhones active globally.
Yes.
But what if the US, and we'll get to the banning, I don't want to get there yet. People are clamoring for this conversation between you and me about banning stuff. We'll get to that in a few moments, not in a moment, because there are other things to cover before we get there. How many of those iPhones do you think are outside the United States?
Ah, that's a good question. I don't know. I would say the majority of them, more than 50%.
Yeah, how about 80%? So 1.2 billion iPhones are
80%.
active outside the United States. Well, think about it.
Wow.
How many people live in the US?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. What, 350 million?
Let's call it 350 just to be conservative, right?
Okay.
Um, that leaves another 1.2 billion, and let's just say everybody has an iPhone. That includes babies, people on respirators. You know what I mean? People in old folks' homes.
They will
All
love
these,
iPhone.
you know what I mean? But if you just go to like the main demographic of people that have an iPhone, there's 300 million iPhones in the United States. It's a lot. Okay. But 80% of the 1.5 billion phones active globally are outside the United States, which means that Apple is also a distribution mechanism for
Yes.
all of these
Yes.
models, which is something
Yes.
you've mentioned, I think, before anybody else has mentioned it. But the
Yeah.
point is that AWS, Microsoft,
Yeah,
Google,
you're right. You're right. This is so cool.
and Apple now are saying we're model agnostic, and we'll work with anybody who has a decent model.
Yes.
Wow.
It's insane. It's insane. Like, I mean, if you are a company, for everybody who has tried to build a product and to sell a product, you know how hard it is to get clients. And like the
Yeah, yeah.
distribution part, the selling part is just so complicated, right? Like it's just like so many things going on. And really you get to be focused on acquiring clients, and it's hard, and especially when you go to enterprises, like sometimes a sales cycle can take years, like really
Yep.
can take years.
Yep.
And what do you do during this time, right? Like this is why often like startups, they need to raise a lot of money, because sometimes their first client can come after 2 years, not because they are not ready, no, just because the internal process, the internal adoption of the big company can actually take years before we can deploy something. And so, yeah, when you have Apple and AWS and all of these massive companies who can do the distribution for you, it is just insane, right? And so that's why I always say this is the big brothers to me. That's how we call them. And these are the ones who are going to push and Anthropic and OpenAI to be open source, because there's no way that if everything that we just say works is true and is getting organized right now, it's not ready yet,
Yeah,
right? Like
no.
Amazon just launched VFD program, so like it's like we are just starting to see this distribution taking place. But the day there is some little bit of hint, just a little bit of hint of things working, I'm sure the first phone call from AWS to OpenAI is, guys, go to open source, because we need to sell you, right? We need to be able to sell you. We have tons of
Right. And the
demand.
feedback we're getting from all of our clients, whether they're institutional clients or individual clients, is we're going to use the open weight model because it's cheaper and because we can fine tune it for ourselves, as opposed to just using this fixed frontier lab model, which is what it is, and that's what we get to use.
Yeah, and plus, like also, like let's not discount also something that is really, really important is that the engineers at AWS, Google Cloud, and all of these hyperscalers, they are truly amazing. Like
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
I've
yeah.
worked
No, no,
with a bunch of them.
yeah.
These are the, and first of all, they are free. Okay, so which means that when you're a client of AWS, their engineer team can help you for free. I mean, it's so expensive, these
I
cloud
wouldn't call it free,
providers.
but yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you
But so
mean. The point you're
you
making
pay
is fine.
yeah, you pay for the servers, but the service is included into that at no cost. And really,
Sure, sure,
those
sure.
guys, they are just so good. So, which means like when it's been years that you've been working with Bob at AWS, and Bob has fixed every problem for you. Bob has
Right.
helped you with all the infrastructure. And Bob is a nerd. Bob is just doing AWS stuff all day since 10 years. Like he knows everything, every button, every API, every product, and
Mm,
he just passionate about that, Bob, as well, because when you work in the cloud business at AWS, you're on the edge, right? Like you are doing what's best in the world, right? And so
exactly.
you are fixing some of the biggest engineering problems for some of the biggest companies in the world. They all use this type of infrastructure. So Bob is super skilled. Bob he just want to fix big problem. He's been working with you for 10 years and it has helped your company grow. He has seen your company grow as well over the years, and it's all thanks to the reliability of AWS. You want to keep working with Bob, right? Like it's as simple as that. Like you're not gonna add, somebody else into your organization just to make things more complicated. No, no, no. You want to deploy AI with the help of Bob, who knows your system, who knows your integration, who know AWS products. He's the best suited to be helping you. He's the best of the best. So which means I think at some point AWS is going to call you, is going to call OpenAI and Anthropic and say Bob needs to be able to implement OpenAI. Otherwise, he's going to implement Kimi and GLM and Queen and all the other guys, right? So if you want to participate into this distribution, you got to do OpenWeight and install that on our servers. That's as simple as that, I think.
I don't disagree with you. And what is the one thing that Apple really wants to focus on?
AI on device.
Right.
Yeah.
So we already talked about them working with one of the smaller providers, one of the smaller models, and you doing, working around compression and stuff like that. So 2.8 trillion parameters on device is going to be hard, but imagine Apple working with Yang Jilin, who's the founder and the CEO of Moonshot, and saying, hey, we want to put this stuff on device because we want your model to have as much distribution as possible. I can see them technically starting to work with Apple to affect
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
one of the things that Kimi and I think some of these other models have proven is, so one of the big conversation points was, well, open weight, that's great, but these models will never be even close to as good as the OpenAI models or the Anthropic models, or frankly the Grok models or the Spark Muse or Muse Spark models from Meta. But and part of the reason why was because they didn't have access to the most advanced GPUs. But one of the things I think that K3 and I think some of the other Chinese models have proven is that maybe these processor restrictions haven't actually stopped these Chinese open weight model providers from actually building something that's as advanced as it can be.
Yeah, that's true.
So the real question to me, right, and obviously this subscription policy shows that like everybody wants to try this or at least use this or sign up for it. So it's not like it's being overhyped. They've proven that they don't need the best. We talk about this a lot from a model perspective. It just has to be good enough, right?
Yes.
And again, think about this. Your laptop doesn't have full maxed out full maxed out memory. It doesn't have the full maxed out chip. Like all this kind of stuff is true because it's good enough. Because the way technology has developed up until now is, in the 1980s and 1990s and even early 2000s, you wanted the fastest chip because that was going to be a massive differentiator. But now the chips themselves are so fast and so efficient that even for inference stuff, which is what K3 is selling, and long context stuff, they don't need to have the best chips and they can find workarounds to do this. Another question for me is, again, this is the kind of stuff that only you and I talk about is, well, if that's the case, and if a lot of artificial intelligence and a lot of model use is outside the United States, because I can't foresee US companies start to buy chips from Huawei. Because you can't even buy a Huawei phone in the United States or a Huawei phone switching mechanism because the US government is too worried about spying and blah, blah, blah. But in Thailand, Huawei is a huge provider of phone switches. and in Indonesia, you know what I mean? So like in Asia, in India, that's perfectly fine. So imagine a situation where like an Indian, and we never talk about India as a purveyor of LLMs or of models, because maybe they just haven't put them out yet, but you know they will because their technical education is so good. But what does it say about NVIDIA's ability to continue to dominate the market when they were selling the fact that they have the most powerful inference chips, when K3 and DeepSeek have now proven maybe you don't need the most powerful chips in the world. And the most powerful chips are also what? The most expensive chips as well. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I think this is a really good point. I think this is a really, really, really good point. And as you say, like I think the laptop or even the desktop computer example is probably the best example, right? Like you never need the fully spec MacBook Pro or the fully spec Mac Studio. You just need one that fits your needs, right? And except you, Michael, would love to overpay for the for the best chips.
I want to brag. I mean, what are we doing?
Exactly.
I don't think this is a new. This is not a big insight, Martin. Our audience already knows that. I want to have the best stuff, whether I need it or not.
Michael just want to have the best stuff, which I won't complain because at some point you give it to me. So
exactly, it ends up in your apartment. Why are you complaining?
Exactly, but most people, that's not the way they shop. Most people just buy what they need and then that's enough, right? And I think the biggest driver of that is not I don't want to waste things. It's more like I just don't want to pay much more than what I need, right? That people,
right.
I think
big institutions don't want to either, right? Once they figure out that good enough is good enough,
yeah,
their internal systems are going to just their internal CFO and finance department's going to be like, hey, you know, we can, particularly outside of the US, are going to say we can get these chips cheaper and it still works. Yeah. And to be fair, we don't even need the OpenAI model. We can use the Kimi K3.
Exactly.
It's good enough for us, and it's way cheaper.
And when we look at tech in general, I think the entire world run like this. Like we don't buy a Ferrari every day just because it's the fastest car. No, it makes no sense, right? Like we buy the car that's enough for us. Sometimes a little bit bigger because we have a family or like things like this, right? We make all this decision based on our needs and also based on the cost. I think maybe like the biggest driver of things we buy is basically the value for our money. If we go to the mass market, right? And people want to get the most value for the money that they spend. And it's very a tiny part of the population who is ready to overpay for something just because they want the best spec into anything, computer, cars, or phone or whatever. And so I think it's gonna just apply to the same way to the models themselves. And now we reached a point where these models are actually good enough, right? I think we reached this point in Opus 4.6, and now these models are slightly better than Opus 4.6. And so we are already here in mid 2026 with models that are open weight and good enough for probably a big part of the population, right? And so this happened really, really fast. I'm very surprised by how fast we got there, especially where we were 1 year ago. Like it's like 1 year ago we were still thinking like I want the latest AI because it was the best and because there was still a lot of flaws, right? Like it was still not good enough, even the frontier. So that's why we wanted to use the frontier all the time, because the number of use cases were expanding. But as of today, that's not the case anymore, right? And so you're right. If we apply the same idea to chips as well, then Huawei chips, like I think they are going to have a massive market. I think overall Asia, Michael, may have really a huge chance here. Like I think Asia is so well positioned to take advantage of the AI revolution, right? And I think there's something to do in Asia, especially if the US starts to get crazy about the Chinese models, if they ban them or something like that. Never something like this will happen in any other Asian country. Singapore will never do that. Japan, India, they will work together to build massive giants, right? Like this is how it has always worked. They will buy the Chinese chips. They will install the Chinese models. They won't have any restriction on anything in Asia. They will always have access to everything, which means they can always use the best tech. The environment is going to be super competitive as well. Because when you think about it, like we got GLM 5.2 a month ago, and it was the model of the headline, right? And now
Exactly.
everybody talk about Kimi K3, so like it completely got all the spotlight. So it's crazy competitive in the Chinese model market right now. Sorry, in the open weight model right now, it's super competitive, which is good for the clients, right? And so I really think Asia, just by having access to everything uh, unrestricted, like in Europe, they are going to find a way to create some problems as well.
Yep.
But Asia, I think they have the talent, they have the number of people, they have the education, they have the access to everything. They are in a position to be really gaining from this AI revolution, like really good. Probably the best position, I think.
Okay. So we need to talk about Dean W. Ball. And Max has already asked us, have you guys covered how the US is banning Chinese AI? We need to talk about this.
Let's go.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, Dean W. Ball is the head of strategic futures for OpenAI.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
So he has a vested interest in something.
Okay.
And he posted on X some observations on Kimi. One, it's a very good model. Do you want to put it up, Martin? I just found this. So
do you
that's
have the
why you
link?
don't have it. Yeah, give me
Yes,
1 second. Nope, give me
super.
1 second. I'll send it to you. There it is. Okay, put that up because I think this is actually really important. And I want to run through this relatively quickly because I want to get to number 5.
Okay, perfect. Got it.
Okay, you got it up. So 1, it's a very good model. I don't think its performance can be explained away by distillation. In agentic coding sessions, it seems pretty much on par with the best public models of Q1 2026. So you see what he's saying? Q1. We're in Q3. July, August, September. Are we in Q3?
Yes. Q3.
Yeah, so we're in Q3. So he's saying it's close, but no cigar. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the first thing. In my fairly limited use, it also seems very token hungry, so very expensive. Okay, so he's saying like, it's a very good model, but a little chubby, probably doesn't wear the right clothing, and it's just way too expensive if you want to wear it to the Met Ball. Do you know what I mean? And who gave it that haircut? This is essentially what he's saying. That's the first thing. Second, I'm personally surprised that the Chinese state continues to allow the open sourcing of models this good, given the potential risks. Huh. To be clear, I might be fine with models, blah, 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 but I'm surprised that China is fine with it. Are you? Do you understand how this works? So I'm worried that he's gaslighting. Do you know what gaslight is? That he's like lying about what he's thinking.
Okay.
He can't really believe that. Does he understand what the Chinese, we talked about this with the One Belt, One Road. This is soft power.
It's true. It's so weird. He can't.
Right, but that's what he says. I can't believe that the Chinese government would do it. So that's just the first thing. Third thing, open weight models are inherently decelerationist, and I'm continually surprised to see the so-called accelerationists so excited about open weight models. Okay. So I want to see exactly what he means by this. I think I know. Yeah, this is a way to slow stuff down. They want to slow things down.
Yeah.
Really? No, they don't. They want to give it away to people. Like, are you telling me open source is a deceleration model? Or an inclusive model that wants for acceleration? Like, yeah. I don't think his take, I want to go through a couple more things, right?
Yeah.
And look at this. So this is great. Number 4, one probable outcome of open weight model dominant world is full AI communism, which is precisely what China proposes rather than a market product. AI is a public good. Do you see how he says communism? He didn't say socialism. It's a big difference here. He says communism. Why would he say that? Fear. He just wants to scare people.
I think, yeah, you're right. This is really the one world when you're in the Western world, right? That like fear everybody, right? Like, oh, this is bad. This is the one thing that shouldn't happen to our countries. We're gonna all be poor if this kind of stuff happen, right?
Yeah. Right. So this is what he's trying to do. He's saying like, yeah, it's perfectly fine if you want communism or Nazi. You know what I mean? Like it's either that or you're a Nazi kind of thing. And I don't think anybody agrees with both of those things. But here's where it gets super interesting to me. I would guess, this is number 5. I would guess that the US government will at some point realize that their best strategy would be to create large amounts of regulatory risk around the use of open weight Chinese models. Now, he doesn't say to ban them, but he does say, let's just create some regulatory risk. You don't need to ban it. You just need to direct every agency to issue soft law that creates FUD. You know what FUD is?
Tell us.
Fear,
Okay.
uncertainty,
I have this one, FUD.
and doubt. That's it. Just create some fear, some uncertainty, and some doubt. That's it. Well, we might ban it. We're not really sure. These things could be dangerous. It's communism. Do you know what I mean? But this is a very weak-willed response, actually, from a guy who's head of strategy at OpenAI. What he should really be saying is, I don't care. Release it. Don't ban it. Don't create any fear, uncertainty, or doubt. We can compete against these guys because we've got better technology, we've got better research, and we're just bigger, faster, stronger than these guys. Bring it on.
Exactly.
This is what I do. You do this in your life too. If I see a competitive threat to me, I just go, bring it on. Because I can outcompete you, I can outbehave you, I can out everything you, and your competition does not scare me. And I'm willing to say it out loud, and he should be willing to say it out loud as well. What do you think?
I think you are spot on. And it's insane, really, that somebody who is the head of strategic futures at OpenAI is able to, is saying something like this. I think it really shows like how scared they are, Michael, internally, right? Like
because they know they've been outflanked, right? This is the point. So
yes.
Whenever anybody feels desperate, when they look desperate, when they do desperate things, when they act desperate, you can tell that they know they've lost.
But also, Michael, like it is the exact goal from all the talks that we've seen in the last few months with the model providers, mainly Anthropic and OpenAI, going to the US government, asking for regulation, banning their own models. Like it's all aiming actually at getting AI regulated, right? That's what they say. But the way I think about it is that they have been completely overwhelmed, right, by the quality and the cost that these Chinese are able to achieve. And so, which means like in a fair marketplace, they are going to lose. That's it, right? Like if you have a good restaurant and you have an amazing restaurant that just opened next door with better food and half the price, you're gonna find every way to actually make these new restaurants closed, banned. You're gonna put rats into their kitchen. You are going to find a way to make them closed because you can compete with them. That's exactly what's happening here.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
The way I look at it is this, and I love your analogy. I love restaurant analogies almost more than anything. Maybe because I spend so much time at restaurants. But here's the way I look at it. If they open, if you're running like a really fancy, very well run, very nice restaurant, and next door to you, the guy's like, I can make that, and I can make it better than you can, and I can make it cheaper than you can. You let him do that. But then you outserve him. You add other things that they can't. Here's the thing. You do the things that you know they can't do. And what's the phrase? Copying is the best form of flattery. I can't remember. Stealing is the best form of flattery. Something like that, yeah?
Something like that, yeah.
But while you're copying me, I'm iterating. I'm changing. I change my menu, but I make sure that my service is way better than yours. So even though the food is good, that's last week's food. I'm never afraid of competition at any level for anything that I do, because I know, and this is what these guys at OpenAI should be saying. So far, we haven't heard from Anthropic yet, or at least I haven't found it yet. But I know 100% for sure that you cannot outcompete me. There's no way. And because of that, that's what he should be saying. If he has 5 points here, what he really should say is, I tried. Here, let me just run through this, and this is what I would write.
Yes.
It's a very good model, and I don't think its performance can be explained away by distillation or anything like that. I think it's amazing, and I think this is just going to push us to get way better, and we already have things in the works that they haven't even conceived of yet. They've copied us up until now, but we have way better stuff coming, and we're going to release it tomorrow, whatever it is. And I know, number two, I know why the Chinese government is doing this. They're trying to execute soft power on us. And I would encourage the US government to allow them to keep these models out there, right? So that we can also use our stuff as soft power too. I'm not worried. 3, open weight models are inherently I would never write that. Open weight and open source has always found a way to make software development and software distribution better. We completely support it. And as a matter of fact, we're open weighting our models as well.
Exactly.
Ooh,
Also,
how do you
also
like that?
every expert, every cybersecurity expert that we had on the show, everyone, we had PhDs on our podcast multiple times. We had like people running really serious cybersecurity
Yep.
firms.
Yep.
They all agree on one thing, is that if you restrict access to the models, it hurts the defendant much more.
Way
because they
Way
can't
more.
use the latest state to be able to defend themselves.
But you know the attackers are going to.
But the attacker will always find a way to get access to it because as the defendant can't even defend himself, now the prize, if they find a way to get access to the later stage, is so high, and plus it's going to be so easy to attack everybody because they can't defend themselves with the best stage. That now they have such a huge incentive to actually put all the money in the world and all the effort to actually get access to the later stage. And there's always a weak link into any company, right? Like there's always somebody you can bribe, always something you can get. Like once again, like these hackers, these organized crimes. I don't remember the word we used last time, but they are super well organized, super well funded. They make billions of dollars every year.
International crime syndicates is the term we like to use. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, they are just like at a different level. And if you believe that they cannot throw $100 million to access Mythos and to attack everybody until people have access to Mythos to be able to defend themselves, you're super naive, right? Like this is what's happening. And so that's why like everybody agrees that this type of restriction actually is really bad for the defendant, because now they can't even use the tech to protect themselves, and an insurance company is not going to pay off somebody at Anthropic to be able to defend themselves. It makes no sense. We are living in a world of rules, and we go to jail if we do this type of stuff, where the attackers, they are not living in the same world as us and they don't follow the same rules. So it plays to our disadvantage. So now we need to have access to the same tech. And so that's why the open source of software has always been helpful for that. Everybody has access to the same thing. If there is a backdoor, if there is a bug, if there is an exploit, everybody can see it, including your own company, right? It's not only the group of super highly financed hackers who have access to it and who can exploit it before you. No. Everybody has the same chance, so you can defend yourself. And that's why open source has worked so well all around the years, and there's tons of examples of very, very well, of very like highly used open source. And so that's why I don't see any bad thing. I mean, I really believe that. I think this is super true, and I think it should. I think everything that goes against that makes no sense to me, because
So I want to go through 2 more points, if you don't mind, Martin.
Tell me.
Because I want to tell you what I would say. So number 4, one probable outcome of an open weight model is an open weight model dominant world is full AI communism, is what he said. So what I would have said is this: is you'll hear people come out and say that there's a probable outcome that this is full AI communism. Reject that. Reject it out of hand. Only somebody who's scared and unprepared for competition would say this. They're trying to scare you using something that was scary in the 1950s. This is like McCarthy level garbage, is what I would say. Don't listen to it. Don't pay attention to it. Get ready to compete. Always be ready for a competition. And then the 5th thing I would say is this. I would guess that the Trump administration at some point will realize that their best strategy would be to create large amounts of competition around the use of open weight models. And that in a free and an open society, we want to have as much competition as possible. That's what capitalism was founded on. And one more thing about the communism thing, right? The thing that he's saying here is that China is proposing not a market product, but that AI is a public good. And what I would have said is Sam Altman has believed from the founding of OpenAI, it's called OpenAI for a reason. is that artificial intelligence is a public good. And there are plenty of places where you can find quotes from Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, saying that it's a public good. We still believe that. And we will not be outcompeted even for something that provides a public good. Those are the things that I would say for number 1 through number 5. And he should be embarrassed and humiliated that he's saying it this way, because it makes him look like a scared and cowering little fool, right? And anybody who believes that they're good at what they do loves competition, because it proves when in comparison, if you do the comparison and you do it right, it proves I don't even need to tell you that we're better. I'm going to show you.
Yep.
And people that are paying attention will notice.
And for every client, for every user, at the end of the day, competition is good. That's what we want, right? Like we want companies to innovate. We want companies to reduce their price. So we want the pressure on them to actually innovate, to reduce their cost, to give us lower price. That's why, that's why we don't want monopoly, right? Like that's why we this is something that's in the US is that you cannot have monopolies, because it's not good for the user, right? It's not good at the end of the day for the fair market. That creates better environment for us clients. And what I just said about Asia just before, I was like, Asia might be the best position in the world right now to benefit from AI because of competition, right? Like because we have access to everything. So if you want to deploy an AI solution in Singapore, in Thailand, in the Philippines, in Japan, then you have to fight with everybody. You really need to be the best, right? And thanks to that, it gives Asian companies access to everything, which is going to force everybody to do their best. And at the end of the day, we're going to have better solution here. And yeah, I think this is what you need, right? And I think it's absolutely insane. But on the other hand, Michael, yeah, I mean, I think like the thing to read through that is that they're scared and they don't have any solution. And so the only solution is to ban the models. Just because from a competitive standpoint, it's just impossible. They won't be able to compete. We talked about that as a crazy idea, I think, a month ago, right? Like we were like, they are going to ban the model because they can't compete with them. Now actually we are there. It's crazy to think like how bad things turned out in 6 months. Like when you think about it, since like we were really far from it in January 2026, now we're in July, and they are going to ban the competition just because they can't compete. I think it's absolutely crazy. I think to me, like, it's at the same time the moment where AI adoption has been the highest, right? Like we have deployed AI agents in so many companies. We have found so many new use cases for AI. I think like the adoption of AI and the also like what I would say the trust in the fact that AI is going to be helpful, right? Like the AI is going to be good for me.
It's not the metaverse.
Yes, exactly. I would say at the end of last year and in November or December, I was not even sure that AI would be very useful for us. Then we came on February or March, and then I was like, wow, now that's a completely different thing, right? Like thanks to AI agents, thanks to the orchestrators like OpenClaw, like this year has been just insane in terms of the use cases we can do with AI and the impact it can have on our businesses and our life overall. And so now I think it just like, okay, it just proves that there is something huge for AI. And at the same time, OpenAI and Anthropic just admits that they can't compete with China anymore, right? Like, so it's these two things happening in just like like 4-5 months, right? Like it's crazy when you think about it, like how they lost the battle so fast, and now they just ask for time, basically, right? Like just
please
like
help me. Please help me.
Exactly. Please help me.
But can I say this? You know, there's a word in English that it's not a nice word, and it begins with a P and ends with a Y, and it's not a pony.
Okay. Let's not say it.
And that's what this guy sounds like. The not a pony.
Okay.
And the other thing is David Sachs, who I almost never agree with.
Okay.
Because he's a pompous pony as well, says we are at a critical inflection point in AI policy. And he's talking about this thing that Dean Paul said. The leading closed labs, already a duopoly in terms of AI model revenue, want the government to eliminate their open source competition. They have laid their cards on the table. It's time for the rest of Silicon Valley, the vast majority that still values open competition, to lay their cards on the table as well. I agree with David. I want open competition.
Exactly. I want open competition as well.
Open it.
may the best win, right? Like
Yeah,
may the
may the
best win.
best win.
Something I'm not happy with, actually, like something that we need to mention, because like competition is great, but this distillation, I'm not very like. I mean, it's stealing without stealing, right? Like it can't be forbidden because it's so unique, so there is no laws around that. But I would prefer that the Chinese build their own model by themselves, right? Like that would be a better story. Here, there's
Sure.
here we don't know how much of all of this is made for distillation. Let's say it another way. If Anthropic and OpenAI were not here, how much of Kimi K3 GLM 5.2 would actually exist, right? Like what did this guy have actually built themselves? What are they able to build themselves without OpenAI and Anthropic? And that is what we don't know the answer to that. What we know is that these companies in China, they create millions of accounts to distill Anthropic and OpenAI, right? So there's this thing going on. So we need to keep that in mind, right? Like when we talk about fair competition, it's not really fair to do this type of thing, except if Anthropic is doing the same thing. Like maybe they are going to start.
Can I make a point? So you don't like distillation, and I get it. I really do. I completely get it. But do you know the simple story, Martin, why we have a graphical user interface for computers?
Okay.
Do you know why?
Tell me. No idea.
You've heard
I
the
was not
story.
born. I was not born yet.
You can't use that for everything. You can't use that for everything. Because Steve Jobs went to Xerox PARC, right, which was the Palo Alto Research Center, and saw a demo of a graphical user interface on a Xerox computer.
Okay.
And he distilled it in his head and went back and told Wozniak, the GUI is the thing, man.
Yeah, I mean,
And it wasn't distilled
distillation,
per se,
yeah.
but like they didn't invent it, but they sure made sure that everybody else had access to it.
Yes.
And you know what Xerox PARC never did? They never released it. They never competed. It was a research thing. That they didn't care. I don't even think they ever sued Apple. I don't know the answer to that question. But we know as soon as the Mac came out, Windows came out. Okay, and those guys competed against each other forever. Plenty of other people tried to build it. But the real reason why we have graphical user interfaces is because Steve Jobs and probably some of his team went to the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center and was like, that thing looks kind of cool. We need to have one. Right? So you can talk about distillation, but this is really where like thievery is really the best kind of flattery. And it's everywhere.
I mean, it's everywhere. It has been always there, right? It's just here, like maybe it's the scale that's weird, right? Like creating like millions of accounts to just talk to the AI all day and then steal the data. It's not steal the data. It's more like gathering the data, right? So it feels a little bit weird. And once again, like I go back to this idea that if at the end of the day, Moonshot, ZAI, DeepSeek can't launch a model without distillation, it means that they actually completely depend on Anthropic and OpenAI. So in what way? Do they depend on the research team at this company because they are better? Or do they rely on them because Anthropic and OpenAI have spent so much money at loss, but to get to a point that actually enable everything behind that, right? So is it like a mix of both maybe as well, right? Like so that's that's maybe why the Chinese are so cheap, because OpenAI and Anthropic had to do the investment for everybody basically, and the other guys are just stealing them. But if you remove that part that they distill from OpenAI and Anthropic, then maybe the Chinese are also very expensive, or maybe they can't even do it because they don't have access to the same chip, right? So that's why like this idea of distillation, I think, is like, we don't know. It's what's the word, like it make us not really being sure about their actual capabilities of building AI.
Right. So there's this concept of, is it coincidence? Is it causality or coincidence? We don't know. Was it the causality of this, or was it just coincidental that they came? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
We don't know the answer to that, and we'll never know. But sometimes to catch up, you need the distillation, but to leapfrog. Because one of the things that DeepSeek said that they were going to do with that $7-point-something billion that they recently raised is to build up their research team.
Yes.
And are you telling me you don't think there are people graduating or that have graduated with a PhD from some Chinese university that are going to be able to do really good research on, artificial intelligence and the machine learning that's necessary to build this stuff? And to be fair, Yang Jilin, right? Who's the guy who's the CEO and the founder of, excuse me, Moonshot. Where did that guy get his PhD?
In Harvard, no?
Carnegie Mellon, which
Okay.
is right outside of Pittsburgh,
Okay. In the US,
Pennsylvania.
yeah.
That's Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, not Pittsburgh, China. It's not part of the Sichuan province.
But yeah, no, this is, I don't know, this is super interesting what's happening right now. If they find a way to stop distillation, we'll know what's really going on in China.
Yeah.
That's gonna answer the question. But you know, like it made me think about pirates on sports. You know, like people who are streaming sports for free. You know,
Hmm.
like one day,
Do
just like so.
you don't watch any of that stuff, right?
Of course, of course, of course, no, never.
No, I
But
pay
so,
for everything. Just to be clear.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
always pay for everything, Michael. So
I know I
that's good.
overpay for some things.
But so my point is, look, when you have, let's say, I mean, the World Cup is free for everybody, but let's say you have the final of, something that happens only on ESPN Plus, for example, and you have to subscribe for like $100 per month to access it, right? Like, so there is like a part of the population who pay for it, but then there's another big part of the population
Yeah.
that is actually going on pirate websites who give it for free. Okay, so
Yeah.
the reason why I mentioned that is because on this pirate website, the reason why they do that is because they sell like ads on all the website, and that's how they make
Sure.
money. So let's say, for
Sure.
example, let's say just let the final of the World Cup happen like this, just for the example, a
Mhm.
lot of people will want to see that, and so they will get pennies. Like it's really really tiny for
Mhm.
each viewers. But if you have hundreds of thousands of viewers or millions of viewers who come see the event for free on your website, then you make a little bit of money. And if you do that forever, basically you make a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
But more important, the reason why I mentioned that is because this is something that TV channels or broadcasters have thought, but not that hard. And let me tell you why. Because at the end of the day, now they include the pirate streaming inside their total view numbers.
Sure.
So, which means when they go to the advertiser, they say, for example, we have 10 million people who watch our show, 8 are for our subscription, 2 are from the pirate thing, right? So which means now they sell a package to the advertiser for 10 million and not for 8. So which means at the end of the day, it helps them. So that's why they don't fight it too hard, because at the end of the day, they don't make money on the click advertiser that the pirate makes, but the pirates, by giving it to the audience for free, are actually giving them a large part of the audience. And I would argue that for some TV channels, it's maybe 20%, 25%, maybe more than that. Like there is right now, like this private thing are absolutely insane. There's a lot of people who are watching paid event through that, which at the end of the day create a new market for the TV channels, and they monetize that through the advertising system that they put at the halftime show, for example.
I think the White House card was the perfect example of this for the UFC,
Exactly.
where they were
Exactly.
like, we had 8 million people watching it domestically and 34 million people watching it globally, 25 of which were on, I don't know, some website. I don't steal stuff,
So
so I don't know. But yeah.
That's what like instead of fighting it, like just that's really close to distillation. That's the exact same idea, right?
Yep.
Like maybe it's just that Anthropic and OpenAI didn't find a way to monetize that. I mean, at the end of the day, the Chinese, they pay for the token, right? Like so they pay for what they get. The problem is that OpenAI and Anthropic lose money on the token, so which means like they lose money everywhere. So maybe that's a real problem. They just didn't find a way to include this pirate usage, or they didn't find a way to make their product good enough, so then you don't need to go to the pirate, basically. But TVs have figured this out, and that's why they are not really fighting it, and that's why we can still look at every movies and every sports show for free, and it's not going to change because the TV channel, the broadcaster, actually win, right? So
Yeah, they're winning because they make more money, and to be fair, their servers actually get hit less as well because they don't need
yes,
to actually be the one serving it. Somebody pirates off the feed, and then they feed
yeah.
it to other people. Is the way that I understand this.
And they can sell ads to the people who don't have $100 to watch watch ESPN Plus, right? Like
Exactly.
so, there's this huge part of the market who don't want to spend that type of money, but they gonna buy an IPTV, for example, and just watch it for free. Perfect. 10 million more people to whom I can sell these Coca-Cola ads. This is
Yeah.
how I make money, right? And
Also,
so,
the ads on the bottom of the UFC, on the bottom of the the cage. Here's what else is funny about this, Martin. All of these like anti-regulation boneheads, right, are now coming out and saying, you can translate bonehead as David Sachs, are now coming out and going, hey, I've been speaking to people in the industry, and I think that we should self-regulate. We should create something like the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Authority, which is not self-regulation. It's a government agency to regulate AI. Where have I heard that before?
Yes, what about that? Like, I don't know. 2 weeks ago?
Months ago, we talked about the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Yeah.
And now these players are just saying, like, well, maybe we should just have a government agency regulate this stuff.
But consider that we were talking about that as a joke a month or a month and a half ago, right? Like, they are going to ban them because of competition, the same way they have banned BYD, the same way they have banned the phone. Like, they just do that all the time in the US, right? It's not new. It's not like, it's not something they never do. No. They do that all the time. When the Chinese beat them and they can't compete, they just ban them. And so that's why a month ago we were like, it's just a joke. But now it's actually becoming true. But I feel much like if they actually really do that, it's going to be a big problem, like a really big problem. I think I don't think we're gonna ban them long, or if they actually do it, I don't think it can really last, because first of all, a lot of US companies are using these open source models, Cursor being one of them, right? And so what's going to happen to them, first of all, right? Cursor, their composer is built on Kimi. I think that was Kimi, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And so what's happened? No, it was Minimax, sorry. So what's
Minimax,
happening to Cursor? And they are just one example that we know of, but there's a lot of others who are actually using this stage. So that's the first question. Then the second question is, what about the competitiveness of AI in the US? If they create this closed market and they keep paying 10 times more because they have to pay for OpenAI and Anthropic, but everybody in Europe, everybody in Asia, everybody in Africa, everybody in South America can get access to frontier AI for a 10th, a 20th, a 50th of the cost. Like, how are you gonna stay competitive? So it raises a lot of bad questions, right? And like, okay, what is going to happen?
Yeah, also, and Martin, let's go back to the Apple example that we discussed about 20 or 30 minutes ago. And that is, if Apple puts on-device AI on their iPhones, but can't put it in the United States because of blah, 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 right?
Imagine.
People are going to lose their minds.
Exactly. And then
David Sachs's head is going to explode. It's just going to explode. What's he going to do? Then the podcast only going to have 3 people on it, unless Chamath's head explodes as well.
And then Amazon FDEs, they can sell every model in the world. Like, I mean, they can sell every model to all the companies in the world, but only Anthropic and OpenAI and Meta and Grok and Gemini in the US, and they don't have access to this. Yeah, it feels like really weird, right? Like, if something like this happen, I don't know how this is going to be good for the US companies. I mean, I'm really thinking about the users themselves, right? I just think, like, as a user, I'm a client, I'm a company, I have 50 people, 500 people, 10,000 people who work in my company. I don't see how this can be a good thing for me, right? Like, I need more competition. I need different models. I need to be able to do whatever I want. And blocking them is only going to help OpenAI and Anthropic. And I don't see how that benefits the user down the chain.
Right. But also think about this, Mark. Like, do we think that aerospace technology is a national security issue? Like, being able to build the best planes or fighter jets, that's a national security issue, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's not even close, right? But would we ban Airbuses from, like, American Airlines?
Yeah,
that would be stupid, right?
Exactly. And then you just sell them Boeing. And then you just sell them Boeing.
And then what would happen to Boeing? The Boeing where the doors come off the 737 Maxes? Do you know what I mean?
Actually, that's a great example. Like, Boeing and Airbus are the only 2 large-scale plane manufacturer, right? Like, there's only 2.
For now, China is starting to make airplanes, but still, you're right. There are only 2 big ones, right? You get on an A320 or you get on a 737, basically.
But I think even Air France, that's the French airline, that's
it's in the name,
Airbus, basically. that I think they buy Boeing, and same for American Airlines, they buy both, right? And I
Yep.
think
Yep.
this is just to mitigate the risk. Once again, I think this is just the basic diversification that every company needs to do, right? Like they diversify their risk, and so in case there's a problem with one supplier, you don't fully depend on them, right? So yeah, why that wouldn't apply the same in AI? Yep. And thank you, Max, for the names. Bombardier in France as well. Yeah, but I think they only do. I don't think Bombardier does like
No,
what's
they
the
don't
word,
do
like
like
commercial.
737,
Yeah,
747 style jets, but Bombardier does make
fighter
planes.
jets.
No,
They
but they also make Bombardier also makes like planes, these short haul planes where you can like
okay.
fly
Oh, they do
50 people or
private jet, I
25
think.
people on them.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
same thing for Embraer.
Sorry, sorry. I'm not used to. I'm not
Sorry, and
so
yeah, they're not French, they're
Bombardier.
Canadian. So there you go.
I always thought Bombardier was French.
Why would you think that? Why would a French person think something good was French? It's weird.
I always thought they were French.
I thought the New York Yankees were French. It seemed like they were so good. They were always winning. They must have been from France, the southern part of France.
But at least something amazing, Michael, is that we always have our great audience who is telling us, with correcting us when we don't
Thank you.
use
That
the
fact
correct
checking us in real
information.
time.
Yeah, fact checking is amazing. Thank you very much for that. It's really, really good.
You want to know what else is funny? Martin's actually Canadian. His parents just never told him that. He's going to hate me for that later.
I'm really French. Like, I'm really French.
Clearly, otherwise you wouldn't be against being Canadian. Makes no
I'm
sense.
not, of course not.
Um,
But yeah, but I think this is a crazy story. So let's see how this develops, right? But as the US government is so crazy nowadays, it should happen, and then it just goes, and then it gets unbanned a couple of months after. I see something like this. I don't see how it can stay, and I don't see how this is going to be okay for the clients.
yeah, I mean, is there any policy of the current administration that actually has any stickiness or that actually has any grounding in any kind of
Exactly.
reality? That's a real
Exactly.
question, right? So
Yep.
the term taco was made up for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what it means. Always chickens out.
But like in case this happen, okay, so they get banned, and then 3 months after they get unbanned, this is just going to absolutely kill OpenAI and Anthropic, because if they get
Completely.
banned, like let's be accurate, if the Chinese open weight model get banned, okay, and then 3 months after they get unbanned because the clients want to use them, it will just show to everybody that they want to use the Chinese open source model, even when they have access to the frontier intelligence in the US. So which means that in case something like my point here is that they are playing a very dangerous game, like really, really dangerous. Like if OpenAI and Anthropic push for the US government to ban competition, but it's bad for the user, and they know that they can't believe it's good for the user, or it's good for the US population. It's just impossible. Like they just want a market in which they have less competition. So which means like they take really the risk that people actually that we see in plain sight, that actually people want to use the Chinese model and then do everything in their power to actually get access to them.
So,
And this is going to be bad.
so do you want to hear something else really controversial?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I know what the Chinese government's response would be if the US bans the Chinese open weight models.
Okay.
What do you think they're going to do?
They're gonna do nothing.
No, they are. They're going to
Okay.
restrict access. As soon as the United States stops the ban, they're going to go, yeah, we're not going to give you access to them. So none of your companies can have access to them. We're going to remove them from AWS Bedrock. We're not going to let Microsoft distribute them. Apple cannot put them on any of their phones inside or outside the United States. Boom. Now what are you going to do? Tough guy.
And then they just distribute through Alibaba Cloud and through Huawei. Actually, that would be super smart, right? Like, I mean, I don't think Alibaba Cloud and Huawei Cloud have the type of footprint globally that Amazon has.
Don't need it. That's the incentive for people to use it. They're like, wait, I can't get access to that thing. I'll switch from AWS to Alibaba Cloud because now I can get access to it.
But I don't think they have the network of data centers to be able to
Of
do
course
that.
not. Of course not. But you understand the point, right? Is that the Chinese government has recourse to this. And they don't care.
Yeah.
Remember, they're taking a 50-year view, not a 5-day view. And this is the problem when you're dealing with people that are just like, they make decisions based on like how they feel in
Yeah.
the moment, as opposed to actually sitting down and thinking about it and listening to people with like real opinions about how geopolitics work. And there's
Mm-hmm.
every chance, because even didn't the Chinese government say a couple of weeks ago, "You're going to ban them"? No, we're going to restrict access to you. But if they
Mm-hmm.
actually do ban them, they could say that's fine. And again, the other thing they could do is they could stop like all Chinese students from going to study at Carnegie Mellon and build like just better universities. And like there are tons of things that the Chinese government can do, or they could subsidize and give access to like smaller countries for free. They just give them access to Quen and to Kimi and to DeepSeek, and they compensate the firms for them. Like there's so many policy tools that the Chinese government has, and then the U.S. is going to be like, "So sorry, we didn't mean that. Can you also get the Strait of Hormuz opened, or we're not going to do that either?"
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true that in just China do that. I mean, first of all, it's gonna be well deserved for the US, and that would be really bad, right? Like in
Yeah.
case something like that. I mean, it's not well deserved for once again for the clients, right? I think at the end of the
No,
day,
no, no.
the one who is going to lose is the 50 people, 10,000 people company who were using, like in the last 6 months, they have built their orchestrator, they have built their evals,
Yeah.
they have integrated like all of these models, and right now they get to a point where they are happy with the stack and they understand what's going on and they are ready for the next model and all of that, and all of a sudden, boom, the Chinese model get banned. So now they only have access to OpenAI and Anthropic. Their bill go up like crazy. They need to rebuild their entire workflow. They lose trust into AI and all of this. And then 3 months later, the US government say, yeah, actually, you can use them again
Right.
because it's good for you. And then China say, yeah, but actually no, because you really piss us off. In case something like this happen, like I feel bad for the US companies.
Yeah.
Really, it's just going to be really, really bad for them. So it's just going to create, I don't know, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months of massive growth opportunity for both Europe and for Asia, right? Because
Yeah.
while US is going to be busy dealing with their own problems, then in Europe and in Asia, we're not going to have any of these problems, right? And so we're going to be able to install everything, run
Mhm.
everything, build as much as we want. And yeah, that's just going to give a massive disadvantage to the US companies.
Right. This
And
and
it's
this
not
gets
gonna
back.
save.
No, no, no. This
Yeah,
gets back to one of my main tenets is I don't. It's not that I don't mind it. I love
mhm,
competition because
mhm, mhm.
competition shines a light on
Yeah.
those that are losers.
Mhm,
It does. It shines a huge light on the losers, and it's normally the losers that are complaining about the competition.
mhm, mhm,
So
mhm,
you understand what I'm saying? So you
mhm.
can pretty much tell people that are losers by going, they don't want competition. They're uncomfortable with competition. Because at the end of the day, the people that win are the ones that are most competitive.
Yeah,
And that's true not just in business, but in life, because those two things are mirrors of each other.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, definitely.
So,
Definitely. I think this is a really weird moment in time. And feel free to let us know as well in the chat. Like, what do you think? What do you guys think about what happens if the US actually ban the open weight Chinese model?
yeah,
Like,
I'd love to know what our
what do
smart
you
audience
think?
thinks about this.
Yes, exactly. So we have a super smart audience. And I really wonder, like, do you use these models? Is it going to disrupt your workflow in case that happens? What would you feel about the trust towards AI, towards the model? Yeah, I really wonder, like, what do you guys think? It would be very interesting to hear what you think about this as well. Um, but yeah, I think it's I think it's not gonna help Anthropic and OpenAI at the end of the day. It's just going to make things much worse for them.
Yeah, I agree. I
Mm.
agree. I want to show this to just give me 1 second. I want to. Did you put the link in the chat, Martin, to the Dean Ball thing?
Yes, yes, yes. I put the link earlier in the chat. And yes, you are right, Max. I've heard people already trying to degrade the image of Chinese models,
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
things like it can do malicious code injection. Yeah, that's also like the point of Dean W. Bell, right? Like trying to to trying to basically, yeah, say bad things about the models.
yeah, yeah.
It's crazy that I think also when you get to the point where you need to insult someone or you need to degrade someone, it really shows that you have no other options. Right? Like if when you're confident, you don't need to do this type of stuff, right? It's
Yeah,
really
agreed.
it's really like what's the word, like a low blow, right? Like in boxing, like you
Yeah,
do this type of thing only when you have no other option and you're mad or you're frustrated, right? And this is the moment where you start playing unfair, right? And looks like this is what's This is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. To me, it's absolutely crazy that we got there like 6 months ago. We were so far away from it. Everything turns in 6 months. OpenAI and Anthropic will never be able to IPO. It's gonna be disaster. Yeah, no,
It is.
yeah. And yes, as you say, Max, it will be a detriment to US Benin doesn't watch. What about Canada in this discussion? Like, I mean, US law do not apply to Canada. I mean, I don't want to get political, but
No, but Canada has spent the last 6 months saying they're trying to create other sort of global alliances so they don't have to rely on the United States because the US has become an unreliable partner, at least an inconsistent partner.
yeah, inconsistent partner. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So that doesn't.
Yeah, Canada needs a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend, depending on how you want to look at it. But yeah.
So that doesn't apply to Canada. I mean, of course, that's two different countries, but you're gonna be fine there, Max. I hope so for you. But the Chinese EVs, and Trump was talking about banning those cars from traveling into the USA. So yeah, so actually, we talked about that the same like a month ago. Like people are going to Mexico to buy BYDs. So they cross the border, they go buy cheap BYD because they are banned in the US, and then they go back to the US. So yeah, I mean, this is probably the same thing that's gonna happen with you guys in Canada, right? And people are going to just cross the border and buy the car. But actually, my question would be like, why did you guys didn't get Chinese EVs yet? Like, why it took so long? Because there's been in Europe for like a couple of years now. They have been in Asia for a long time now. So why not in Canada? Was there some pressure from the US, or
it might have been? There's this. Look, I don't know, and I'll let the Canadians actually comment on this as well. But while we're talking about it, there's a symbiotic relationship with the car industry in Canada and the United States. They're actually directly related to each other. The U.S. essentially took a lot of the manufacturing outside the U.S., sent some of it to Canada, and then they take the partially constructed cars, bring them back into the United States, and do like some final stuff on it. So those cars, U.S.-made cars or Canadian-made cars that are U.S. brands, literally go back and forth over the border between Canada and the United States multiple times before they actually get sold in the U.S. or before they get finished. So I don't know why. But like, how can you ban like a foreign car from coming into this? It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, no, it is really, really something. Yep, really interesting time for AI. I hope the dust settle and we start talking about the product again, because like all of this once again is just taking the conversation away from the product itself, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's good. I really don't think it's good at all, right? Like the products are good. We should talk about the use cases, the innovations that we see, the new thing we build, the startups that raise funds because they believe in something, the integration of OpenAI with something, the cost of inference they get down thanks to Jalapeno. We should talk about all of these things, right? Like the innovation in terms of power, in terms of data centers. Like we should all be pushing, to the good things, to the positive things in AI, and instead we are talking about this thing, which is really crazy to me. Michael, in terms of negative things, do you want to quickly, before our guests join, talk quickly about the data centers? Because that's pretty much related.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Can you do that in 7 minutes?
AI data centers, they're creating a real backlash. And I think this is also indicative. I think you're right, though, Martin. It falls into the same kind of category. Opposition to AI data centers has moved beyond. Here's what's interesting. It's not just an isolated incident. It's not just happening like in the town where a data center is supposed to be. On July 18th in the United States, there were 142 demonstrations across 42 states that were opposing data centers or AI data centers. And this movement drew support from communities with very different political identities, but a common demand. Local residents should have more control over projects that materially affect their land, infrastructure, and household costs. Right. And here's the thing. We've talked about this a lot, but like the scale of this build out, right, explains the reason why people are so against this. US data centers consumed roughly 176 terawatt hours of electricity in 2023. And federal researchers in the United States now estimate that they could account for around 11.8% of total US electricity by 2030. and it could go as high as 15.3%. And most of the recent growth for these data centers is due to AI, right? And the thing that's really driving this, not the only thing, but one of the things that's really driving this is electricity costs, right? Because a recent Reuters Ipsos, and this is these Ipsos polls, these Reuters Ipsos polls are very well respected, kind of across the board, found that 77% of Americans were concerned that AI data centers would increase their electricity bills. And 57% said that they would oppose a facility in their own community. And only 14% said that they were comfortable with one being built nearby. These statistics really say that like people are super opposed to these things. And in a way, it's not really about the tech itself. They're not like anti-data center. It's just that inflation is bad enough right now, particularly from an energy perspective in the United States, and just adding more demand for electricity without increasing capacity, right? And we know how long it takes to add capacity to the grid. And here's the other thing. China is building more energy. And this is another thing that I agree with David Sachs on, because he was talking about this earlier today on X. And he was saying like China is building more electricity capacity than the United States, and it's blowing it away. And one of the reasons why, Martin, is because the US somehow, I don't know why they would do this, but they somehow decided, yeah, we don't want to invest in renewable energy anymore. And China is dominating the world's evolution and revolution and innovation in renewable energy. They're building more solar, more solar power than has ever been built before. And I think one of the things you could actually tell people that the AI data centers would be okay if the people that are building those data centers also built their own power sources. I don't think most people would care. They do make noise, right? They do make this kind of whirring noise. We talked about that a few months ago. But I think the real thing that's bothering people is that their electricity bills are just going up really, really high. And those costs are built into the existence of the data centers. So those guys don't care. But when your electricity bill goes up at home and you're like, I'm not using any more electricity, what's going on here? That's going to start to get people, and that's going to start to create backlash. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually already happening, right? Like people are already against data centers. They already don't like them. And I mean, in the US, right? In France, they are worried about the turtles if you build data centers there, and they are asking you
This
like, how
turtle
do you
thing really
protect?
bothers you. Go ahead.
How we don't know. It was that question to the CEO of Mistral AI, right? Like he talked about
Yeah.
AI and growth and all that, and the government asked him, and how are you gonna protect the turtles when you build your data center? I was like, these bigger problems. Sorry, but move the turtles, put them somewhere else. I don't know, do something. But I think France needs
What
to
are the
build.
turtles contributing to society? Just so I know, I'm not anti-turtle.
No, but
I'm
move
not
them
turtle.
somewhere else, right? Like
I'm
we
not
have
turtle Semitic.
mountains.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not against turtles. I'm just saying, like, what are they doing? What's their contribution to society here?
And so that's why like, there is already like yeah, backlash. So this is not going to help neither, right? Like if I mean, yeah, we could see some. I mean, the easy solution is just to build them in Mexico or in Colombia, you know, something close, something like this. They can always do something like that. But yeah, I mean, something like so that we should share, Michael, is like Claude said, like related to these two stories, that beginning July 20, Claude Fable 5 will be included in all the Max and Team plan. So
Wait, what does that
basically,
have to do with the data center thing?
because they say it's because they manage to find a way to handle the compute. So basically, the entire explanation of why Fable is not going to be included into the subscription is because they say we don't have a compute. But actually now they basically say, hey, we actually do have a compute. We found a way. Congratulations to the entire Anthropic team. They are amazing. And now we can actually leave Fable inside the subscription. So if you've been listening to AGTP, you are not surprised about this at all. But it really shows that the discussion around compute is an ongoing conversation inside the labs, right? Like they really talk about that. They really need more compute. Kimi needs to pause the new signups because of compute. And so if it gets much harder as well to build compute in the US, how is that also going to help OpenAI and Anthropic, right? Like where is all of this going? I'm really wondering. It looks like everything is getting more difficult for OpenAI and Anthropic at every level. Like the market is getting more more competitive. The compute is getting harder to get. Like it looks like at every level it gets harder and harder, and I don't know how we're gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's a bad sign though, right? In other words, you have the
Michael,
open. Yep.
yeah.
Go,
Sorry to
go,
interrupt
go,
you.
go. Go do your thing. I'm just gonna keep talking. Yeah.
Yep, Jack just joined. He's our first guest. I will leave you here for
I'm just gonna make a few more
couple of
comments.
minutes.
Just send Jack
Yep.
in. Like, don't wait for me to ask. Just send Jack in, and as soon as I
Okay.
see him there, I'll stop. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Martin.
everybody, for joining, and I'll see you on Thursday. Next live Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll do twice a week from now on. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Okay, so I just wanted to keep talking about the data centers just for a moment, right? Because I do think that they're completely related. And I think there's an overlying thing, an overarching thing happening in the United States right now. One is I do think that the big frontier labs are afraid of competition. They know and Martin and I have spoken about this on every show. And for those guys that have listened to us talk about this, you know the way we feel about this. We feel like they went down the wrong road. They've built the wrong business model, and they've raised way too much money that's dedicated to running that business model. And now they never anticipated the fact that these open weight models were going to come and just completely blow their businesses out of the water. But on top of that, speaking of water, we can talk about that too in a minute. But now they're having problems building data centers. And I think part of the reason why, and this is sort of endemic in the United States, I think part of the reason why is that these big technology companies that are building some kind of amazing stuff, right? But their ability to communicate, and OpenAI has had this problem for a long time, Anthropic as well. And I mean, Elon Musk is like the worst communicator ever. So anything that happens there, bad communication. I wouldn't say Zuckerberg at Meta, particularly talking about their Meta Spark stuff, is any better at communicating this stuff. But they've never been really communicating at what the benefit of artificial intelligence is to the people that are sitting outside the Magnificent Seven. They've just done a really bad job of this. They see the electricity prices going up. They know that that's the case. There are ways to interdict this and to make that whole process better, but they're not communicating what the benefit is to society as a whole. And just the way the US is structured, that then impacts when people start opening data centers. The state of New York has basically had a moratorium, basically started a moratorium for a year, going, we're not going to build any more artificial intelligence data centers until we can get the approval of all the people that actually live in this state. And I think part of the reason why is just because their communication has been so bad. Okay, I think Martin is sending us Jack Davis right now. So as soon as Jack jumps in, let me just stop talking about this and we'll get Jack in. Martin, are you listening? That's okay. I'll keep going. No worries about it. So the other thing I mentioned is water, right? So we talked about energy usage. But water as well is one of the ways that cooling happens in these AI data centers, frankly, in all data centers. But a lot of this construction that's taken place recently and a lot of the planned construction is around AI data centers. So water use remains highly dependent on location and cooling design. And it means that national averages, sorry, and that the broader problem here, again, is not just communication, but transparency. Federal research has said that limited disclosures make it difficult to evaluate how new facilities affect local electricity systems, water resources, and community development. And to be fair, my solution to this, partially at least, would be this. And that is, if you want to build a new data center anywhere in the country, you have to provide your own power. Unless you can prove that it's not going to impact the local electricity prices for the people that live in a town where there are 5,000 people or 50,000 people, or frankly, even 5 million people across a bunch of different towns. And here's the other thing that I would recommend as well. I would recommend that these data centers are run at least partially on renewable energy. And that if they do run on renewable energy, that the companies that do it actually get some kind of tax write-off for some kind of benefit. And you can say, well, that's weird. It's a weird regulation to do. But I mean, but if you think about it, Tesla made most of its money off of incentives for electric cars that the government paid them. So they discounted their cars and got a government payment as an incentive to build electric cars to make the environment for environmental reasons, for sustainability reasons, and whether you agree with that or not, that's just a fact. That's something that was actually done. Um, thank you guys. So the fact that this would be a recommendation for these types of data centers, I don't think is even politically unpalatable. You just have to go out there and get this stuff done. Now, let's talk in a little bit more detail about this stuff. Oh, do we have Jack? Jack, can you hear me okay?
How you doing?
Super duper. There you are. Nice hat, by the way. Who do I have to pay
Thank
off
you.
to get one?
I can send you one over. You don't have to pay off anyone.
Oh, good, because I'm not good at payola. It's like one of the things that I haven't really practiced that much. Okay, let's do this, Jack. It's great to have you on the show. One of the things we wanted to talk to you about was how technology can actually help consumer brands improve operations, distribution, and customer relationships. But before we do that, let's give some people an idea about the important work that Byte'm, do I have that right, is doing.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So
Tell Byte'm, what are you guys doing?
We basically just make premium brownie bites. So they're more indulgent, but they're like cleaner ingredients than some of the other leading brands. Yeah, we add different textures and flavors, and it's a little bit like Tate's cookies. If you're familiar with that brand, it's like baker quality, but on the go.
So tell me, what was the impetus for building this company? Like, how good are your mom's brownies? That's what I want to know.
I think they're very good, but I was always just looking more for a cleaner ingredient product that still tasted good. A lot of products on the market that have protein these days don't always taste the best, honestly. Again, that's what I think like Tate's cookies or some of these other products do a great job of. They still satisfy a need, which is that sweet tooth craving. So they still taste good, but they have a lot less processed ingredients. So we still use like real cane sugar. It still, has some of that sugar in it, but at the same time, it's not as bad for you as some of the other products out there.
So you mentioned protein. Is this a protein-based product as well? Are you trying to sell this? No, you're shaking your head no. But you did say protein. Yeah, did I get that wrong?
There's no protein in the product. I mentioned protein though, that is correct, but like we don't use protein. I was just mentioning that because it's very common now in the food space. There's like a lot of our friends that have brands, they do protein, and that's a great thing. But sometimes there's protein in products where it doesn't really feel like it needs to be, nor does it taste that good. So I feel like it's kind of a compromise ultimately, where it's not a real solution they're solving. They're kind of creating a product for no reason.
Got it. What did you learn about consumer demand? First of all, how long have you guys been working on Byte'm?
We've been working on it for about a year and a half. That's when we officially launched. There was a couple months before that, so about 2 years total. I think the thing we really learned is that the biggest problem is actually supply. There's a lot of demand, sometimes naturally, for a lot of these products. It's how much can you scale up your brand, and that's what I'm excited to talk about, AI and how that can help. But I think that we tried to naturally see how much demand there was in the market without adding a lot of fuel on the fire, because you want to really see if the product can speak for itself. So we didn't really run a lot of paid ads or anything like that. We actually put it in a couple retail stores that were independent here in New York City, where we're based. And then we tried to get the best packaging possible to see if it would naturally kind of get off the shelf without much marketing support. And it did. So then from there, we just tried to scale it up.
So talk to me about where technology fits in here. And I'm curious if when you guys started the company, obviously I understand the snack side of it. I understand the sweet tooth side of it. Frankly, I go to a gym. So when you said protein, like my eyes kind of opened up and I'm like, I'd love to have a better tasting brownie that has cleaner ingredients in it, but that also has enough protein in it. So it's actually worth eating, right? I'm not against having some sugar in my diet, but but I mean, there has to be some other benefit for me, but that's fine. But when did you guys decide that like there was a technology angle here as well to better understand consumer demand and automation and all the other things that go into building a brand and actually building products?
Yeah, so I actually had a background working in tech, which I think helped a lot because from there you learn a lot about tech and automation AI. So I was working at this company, Twilio. They're pretty prominent. They have a lot of APIs, like a lot of developers.
Say it again.
Twilio.
You were working where? So Twilio is the main presenting sponsor for our Asian show. So go ahead. Say whatever you want about Twilio.
I was a past employee there. They acquired a company as well called Segment. And then I was working in Segment. So it's a CDP. And yeah, you really learn a lot of great ways to like run a business, or how to reach out, write an email, cold call, all that stuff, how to organize your thoughts. And from there, I met my co-founder back in college, and he was in law school, so he's very smart as well. He graduated, but we ultimately decided to work on this project because after he graduated, we were already just kind of taking off, and I left that tech job because I figured ultimately I really wanted to build something, especially in the physical space, that was a physical product you could hold. I just always thought that would be really cool and fascinating. But having that tech background, like I was saying, you always think about how you can scale and automate things. And I think one thing in the supply chain we learned really fast is that there's always a lot of problems that occur, a lot of errors that can pop up, no matter how many times you try to like cross your T's, dot your I's.
Yep.
So I think AI can be really great at helping make sure you ordered all your correct ingredients, or like scaling up your calculations, making sure everything's right at scale. So we built like an internal solution using Claude, software that provide like similar uses. But I think for smaller brands, you can build a lot of these internal tools yourself. Maybe as you scale up to very large scale, you might want a SaaS software because it's maybe like more built out and maybe more reliable. But for our current stage, it definitely does the job. So.
Who would you consider as the technical founder on the team?
I would consider myself more of the technical founder, but I'm really not even super technical. Definitely wouldn't have been able to code all of this back in the day by myself. But obviously now there's a lot of vibe coding. So it really helps. And if you ever run into a problem, you can usually just prompt and ask the question to either Claude or OpenAI, ChatGPT, whatever browser you're using, or agent, and then ask it to tutor you, and basically it can help point you in the right direction of what you need to know.
So so this is actually super interesting to me. I don't code at all. And to be fair, Martin does a lot of the coding and stuff like that, but using the same methodology that you do, although he's probably been doing it slightly longer than you. But again, he's not a technologist per se. Here's how your use of Claude, are you still on 4.8? Are you using Fable 5? Like, which one are you using? And how do you decide like that you wanted to use Claude as opposed to Codex, or was it just sort of happenstance?
I tried all the different ones a couple months ago when vibe coding was not as good back in the day. And I felt that ChatGPT and Gemini were not really, they were making a lot of mistakes, but I found that Claude, for whatever reason, it felt a couple months ago, obviously the models have caught up a lot now, it thought in a broader sense of the whole project architecture, whereas the other models felt like they were more specific to that particular like page of code or something like that, like a feature, rather than the whole project and like taking into account everything. But I was using
sorry, go ahead.
I was using like 4.8, like Opus 4.8. It's pretty good. I think obviously Fable 5 is really, really great. You don't even really need to know much besides like an IDE, which is like something like Visual Studio Code, or there's like some other ones, and that's where you like plug your code in. And then there's some other things like Vercel, which is like what hosts your website, or like those are like confusing to someone who's never worked in that space before. But I feel like asking the model can kind of point you in the right direction of how to get all that stuff set up.
How have you felt or dealt with the uncertainty around Anthropic saying, we're going to take this? I presume you have a monthly subscription. Yeah. I presume you pay for
I had the monthly
subscription, the $200 subscription. Yeah. I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you felt around there, flip-flopping around? We're no longer going to include this in the subscription. Oh, no, we're going to do it until the 12th. Oh, maybe the 19th. Do you know what I mean? Because they've been really flip-flopping back and forth. How has that impacted your confidence in the fact that that's still going to be available for you? So answer that, because then I've got a follow-up if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I think actually the Opus 4.8 and those other models really are super capable. And yeah, it honestly really didn't make much difference to me. I was obviously very amazed at the work it was able to produce. I have like played around with Fable 5 and even built some other like fun side projects just for the fun late at night. I don't know why, but but I think that yeah, it was just like such a great tool on like 4.8 or these other models that it really, I'm never that concerned. I know there was a lot of tweets and other people being like, even like canceling dates I heard of, which is kind of funny. Be like, I need to use Fable 5 to get the maximum time. But I think a lot of that is a little bit of marketing hype sometimes, where it's like, really, these products are pretty great anyways. It's really not, I don't know, at the end of the day, that catastrophic. I think it's kind of sometimes even the company's trying to push you to like a scarcity mindset to use the model more.
Yeah, to do something that you don't necessarily want to do. Have you been following the news on Moonshot's Kimi K3?
Yeah, I saw that. I think it kind of reminds me of I forget the name of that other model, but
DeepSeek.
Yeah, DeepSeek. Yeah, exactly. So it reminds me of that same time period a couple months ago. I think that stuff too is a little overhyped in the sense of everyone's like, oh wow, this model is so good right now. It's number one. But I think that honestly, a lot of stuff, it feels like it has diminishing returns. So these models are already like a 9 out of 10, like I'm saying. So if one is like a 9.8, and the other one's like a 9.5, I really honestly don't notice that much difference. It is more remarkable they are able to build this with like supposedly less compute and more like open source and stuff like that. But I don't know. To me, it sometimes just feels like some stuff again does go viral because people kind of like fear monger, and they're trying to like get a reaction out of people a little bit of like, oh, US versus China, and like I don't know. So
no, I love it, and I love the response as well, because Martin and I joke a lot about how we almost feel like Anthropic's only marketing strategy is either A, we're going to change the subscription model, or B, our next model is way too dangerous to release, so we can't let it go out. Like, so when we joke about this, like, could you imagine if you guys did this? We've developed a brownie that is so good, we just can't release it because it's just we're afraid that it's too dangerous. It tastes too good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think you may even want to do it just as a joke and just say like, you know what I mean? It would just be hilarious.
Yeah. No, that would be hilarious. It's like too addictive. People are gonna gain too much weight or something.
I dare you. But where are you finding that AI has the most impact? Like, I know you're using it to program, and I understand the vibe coding and stuff like that. But how about from like a supply chain management standpoint, or from an ingredient standpoint, or even just like from a research standpoint? Where are you finding it has the most impact, and where has it surprised you the most? Where it's given you, because remember, these models that you're using are not deterministic, right? They're probabilistic as well. They're probabilistic, so you could get different answers at different times depending on what you're asking them. What have been the places where it's most effective, and what have been some of the surprises that you've had where you're like, I don't think that's necessarily going to help us out?
Yeah, well, my co-founder also has Claude, and he has like his own account, and it's funny because our models will sometimes say different stuff even when we're pretty much asking the same question. And I feel like it's a little bit like our own, it knows our own brains, because obviously it tries to kind of say what you would be the most pleased with. So sometimes when we're disagreeing, we're like, we almost have them fight each other, but then it just kind of, nothing ever really gets resolved. It's just always kind of like a he said, she said kind of thing. He's a guy though, but
But then where's it been most effective? Where's it created the most efficiencies for you guys and stuff like that? Sorry, go ahead.
I think, again, really, on the supply chain, the model we built for ourselves, the internal tool, it would really track our current spreadsheets and Google Sheets, or like, Excel, and it would see how many ingredients we have on hand versus how many we need to order. And then it also ingests like POs, so it could analyze with, I guess, like a screen reader, image reader, a PO we got from an email, and then basically update the spreadsheets of like how much ingredients we would need. So we found that like very useful, and been toying around with that. I think the other main thing though is just like really using it as like a third brain, or like third co-founder. And we've even used it for stuff like our, building our own website. We still need to, it's not the best. It could be updated a lot, but almost any problem you run into, it's really great to get a general advice on. I don't know if it's a golden truth, but you can get like 80 to 90% understanding on a subject just by like asking it quick questions.
And how about financial management? Have you found ways to, because again, you said PO, I presume you mean a purchase order, right? So there's money involved in that. Yes, sorry, I just wanted to make sure for people that don't necessarily understand the nomenclature or the jargon. But there's got to be some financial management stuff that you can do there as well, right? Like, it's pretty good at mathematics. And if you understand like what that PO means, and then all the other places where you're spending money or making money? Does it help you on the financial management side, and can you build your own sort of
Yeah,
financial models doing this too?
we still have QuickBooks, and then ultimately we actually did hire a bookkeeper. We were using it for some financial stuff. I think it is just a lot to comb through so much different data points.
Yeah.
Ultimately, too, there is a lot of connectors that you can connect into the tool, where it's like whether it's email, Slack, like QuickBooks into Claude or ChatGPT.
Yep.
But I think that still there is sometimes a lot of just so many different pieces and data points that it's hard to comb through it all. And I felt like honestly having a bookkeeper still was very useful. And they use actually like a lot of AI to even help. So they're trying to build their even current accounting firm a more agentic like ground up, which I know that's hot now too. There's a lot of like law firms that are agentic from the ground up, or
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you as well, is there a place for agentic AI, that level of automation inside of your business, or are you not at that scale yet? But still, do you anticipate getting to that scale? If the product is popular, you could scale, you could get up to scale actually very quickly, and then maybe need some agentic help. Are you looking for places to do that as well?
Yeah, I think I'm always a fan of technology because I had that background. So I am a believer, and I think too that like we are always looking for options. Yeah, we still aren't at the largest scale, so I'm sure like a lot of those bigger companies, definitely there's a lot of more uses than we're able to take advantage of. I think that it's interesting though, because there is a lot of companies or people ultimately with AI probably want guardrails of a certain sort, but inherently guardrails kind of limit the amount of time or what like an action can be taken, if that makes sense. Like for example, financial guardrails, you probably don't want your agent to send over someone like $50,000 when you wanted them to send only 5,000 or something like that. That's there is a lot of financial agents now there's more and more of them. It's still not like super common these days. Like the more common thing is I feel like people are consuming a lot of tokens by accident.
Yeah,
but
I don't disagree with you there. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I think that but at the same time, you probably wouldn't want to have to approve every transaction the financial agent is taking, because that would get monotonous, right? So I think it's there's a fine line. I don't know what it is, but if you're having like an agent fully run autonomously, I don't know. Yeah, it's like there are certain things you probably would want it to check in with you before it took that action, but that also at the same time, you don't want to have to check in with every action is like what I mean. So I don't know. Whatever version of that is possible out there where it's like it can fully understand you. You might have to have like a neural link or something like that. But it could like fully understand whatever you want when you want it, and that action be taken, and that's like the most ideal. But
yeah, so my feeling is that there's no such thing as full autonomy for any kind of agent. And
yeah.
I'd like to make this an analogy between like what an agent is and what a human does, if you don't mind. Like your co-founder doesn't have full autonomy either, right? Like that would be insane. If the dude just starts making like unilateral decisions, that's not going to work. I'm sure he runs stuff by you, but again, you build guardrails for each other, and in the same way that you'd build it for your agents. Do you see a way to automate the supply chain? And is your supply chain ready for that? Because this is the other question, right? Like you can be an AI first or an AI native company, but if your suppliers and the people with whom you're interacting outside your company are not ready for it, it minimizes your ability to be as efficient as possible. How are you finding working with external businesses, whether they're your suppliers or whomever, their ability to handle your desire to automate stuff?
Yeah, I think actually I was surprised, because I did think that some of this industry particularly would be it's a lot of like blue collar workers. So I thought it'd be more backwards. But actually, in some weird ways, some of these industries like farming, or even manufacturing, they were some of the pioneers of automation. A lot of these machines they use to make products at scale, like brownies or other baked goods, are automated machinery. And actually, some of them were even bringing robots on their lines. I know there's I've seen videos too of there was that one I think Figure or something like that was like sorting packages. But these I was talking to our manufacturers, our co-manufacturers, and they were actually bringing in robots already because like AI startups approached them our robotics companies approach them.
Interesting.
So they're open to adopting. And I actually did read this thing on Twitter recently. It was from apparently like an ex COO from, I think, BlackRock or something like that. But he was saying that actually in some of these manufacturing businesses, they actually might benefit more than even like tech companies in some ways from automation, because their margin, it really matters, like a 1% to 2% difference. Whereas like SaaS already had like 80% margins, whereas like typically manufacturing is more like 30 to 50%. And that could really help more. But yeah, we're still a small company. So honestly, like we still can't like really fully leverage it to answer the question like in a shorter way. But I think there's a lot of,
but again, you're forward thinking, and because you come out of a tech background, at least understanding the way some of this stuff can work. It's just interesting to me. Look, I have literally hundreds of discussions with people that are trying to, both in small companies and in large institutions, right? And incumbent companies as well, that are trying to implement agentic AI and even just artificial intelligence at scale for automation. And one of the things that they found is that their partners are not always ready for it. And in some cases, you're right. Like you and your business partner can make a decision. Should we do this or not? And you can literally implement it right there and then, because there aren't that many people to make decisions, but you can, right? And that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But a larger institution, even a company with 100 people, is probably not going to be 50 times less flexible than you, but they could be 1,000 times less flexible, if 100%. That makes sense, because they have policies in place and all this other stuff. So working with you could be much easier to implement AI, but for much larger companies, it could be super harder. And you're right, the margins actually come into play too, because if I have 80% margins and I'm gonna get a 1% benefit, what am I doing? Right. But if I have 1% margins and I can get a 0.5% upgrade, I'm going to do that because I get 50% more profit.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. I think it's just like, there's so much that comes into play. So I think the main thing small startups obviously have that a big giant like monopoly doesn't have is speed, right? Like you're saying, so you can pivot fast.
Well, just agility and flexibility.
That,
like, just big companies definitely don't have. What about new product design? Like, how does artificial intelligence help you, or technology at any level help you say, we think this product is going to be great, but how do we make it in a way that's most effective and is on brand for Byte'm? And the second thing is, how do we know what the best way is to distribute these products as well? You're right, because like just because somebody buys a brownie doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy a cookie. I'm not suggesting you're making cookies, but you understand the point, right?
Yeah. I think that it's interesting because I think that it's not very good at the like design aspects of the actual artistic design, even though I know like Claude and stuff has even launched some design stuff. So we ultimately did actually hire an agency to help brand, because that really, a lot of that art sometimes comes to like taste, having like good taste, but it's very useful for in terms of products, like, you know, you're talking about in terms of trying to see what sort of product you should launch, because I think you can ask it to pull in tons of data from the internet or other places, which again can be slightly misleading. So you take everything with a grain of salt, but running different numbers on which categories are the hottest. So whether it is, like a cookie or like, you know, ice cream or I don't know, other areas, we are called Byte'm. So it should be biteable things. And that could even include potentially down the line, like an egg bite you eat in breakfast. So like how many Americans are actually eating breakfast now compared to the past? I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd probably ask that question and then try and have it run all the different data points of like which thing is indicating, you know, the most demand over the short term or like long term, I guess, like that arbitrage wherever you can get in before other people haven't like realized it yet. So I think that would have been really hard to do on your own, because you would have had to do a lot of like manual internet research like prior, but now you can like fast track it.
What do you think about, what do you think about, what's the right way to say this? Not just connecting with your customers, but building a community around the brand, and maybe using artificial intelligence to kind of help enable that, if that makes sense, right? In other words, as a small company, you can start, like, you know who some of your clients are. I'm sure you know them personally. But keeping them engaged is a way to have them just be like a marketing engine for you, but not just that, but like if they feel like they're part of something, do you know what I mean? then
Yeah, for sure.
they'll be way more loyal. How do you feel about customer engagement and using technology to sort of enhance that?
Yeah, I think so like on one hand, more AI in some ways is actually driving people to have more in-person experiences. So that's really great.
Yeah.
And we try and like meet a lot of these people in person. But how AI can actually even help increase that is, I think there's a couple companies specifically for Instagram. We've started to look into these. I have a lot of peers that have been using them, and it'll be like, oh, comment X emoji, and we'll DM you something. And I think that even things like that, it can help. That would have been very tedious and a lot of time back in the day to individually DM each person, especially at scale, if there's like 1,000 people DMing you. Whereas now you can like easily keep people engaged in your community and feel like they're more a part of it, because you can just run, I guess, even like more giveaways or more like engagement pieces. You can build out more, like there's an app or two called Okendo and one's called Yotpo, and they are for website reviews. So like when you buy a product off of Shopify, they'll send you automated emails and ask you for like reviews for you to take a picture. And then that picture can actually be uploaded on your Shopify as like social proof. So I think stuff like that, again, it displays the community on your own website, and it's also will allow other people to want to buy your product even more because it's social proof on your website. But people at home might think it's cool too, because they're like, oh, look, I'm on this big brand website, or like even a smaller brand's website, so they feel like a part of that community.
What does scaling look like to you? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's your biggest concern about? It's a high quality problem to get bigger, but what's your biggest concern about getting bigger, and how does technology actually help you get there, but still maintain because look, one of the things that Ben and Jerry's has done over time, right? At least when they first came out, was like they made people feel like, Ben and Jerry were making the ice cream. And it kind of led a lot of people to buy their products. I'm not saying that you're doing similar stuff, but I'm just saying, like, how do you make people feel like you still care about them as you get bigger?
Yeah, we actually talk about Ben and Jerry's a lot. They're one of the inspirations as well. And they, like little mini story, they add inclusions like cookie pieces or brownies into their ice cream, because apparently one of them he can't smell and taste. So he would feel those different textures in his mouth. So that's why we started adding textures on the brownies. We thought it'd be fun. But yeah, I mean, that's the core of what we were trying to get, that homemade flavor or taste feel at scale. Everything at scale is hard, especially in the physical world. It's really hard to scale stuff compared to like a software. So I think the main thing ultimately is probably, it's an obvious answer, and I'll give like a second answer, but it's like probably money, because it can be very expensive for large production runs. We'd love to even build out our own facility. We know other small brands that are like, they're medium-sized brands, I would say, bigger than us, but they've built out factories and actually got even sponsorship from either their like country, or like, I know someone in Canada or States, they'll have programs where you're going to create a lot of jobs if you build a factory. So they'll get like, I don't know, like credit, like tax credits and other stuff like that if they opt to build a factory in that local state versus like another one. Or so I think money is huge, because then you can build out your own factory. But yeah, definitely, I think in terms of like factories and stuff like that, that's where one of the main pain points in terms of like AI, because that's a little harder to apply to a factory unless it's like robotics. I would probably say, again, probably more in the supply chain of being able to like understand your business from a holistic perspective by ingesting data from all the different points, and then having it indicate which lever to pull next, like which product is selling the most, or like in what area, and like to double down on that, because that can get you even more sales or something like that. And it could have been hard back in the day to have, that's why there's so many data analytics jobs or data science jobs, because it's that's a very, like, data is so valuable and that insight is very valuable, but I feel like you can do it at an even grander scale now, basically. So
absolutely. Okay, Jack, look, I really appreciate you spending so much time with us tonight. Very interesting conversation, and different than most of the conversations we normally have. I love this idea of building physical products as well. You may or may not know this, but like I worked at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs for 20 something years, and I just like pressed buttons and made money. It was a weird feeling not to have like a physical product. So good for you for building stuff in the physical world.
Thank you.
Keep in touch with us. I'd love to taste the brownies. I don't know how that's ever going to be possible because I live on the other side of the world. But yeah, send something to Martin. I'll steal them from him. He steals stuff from me all the time. And it was great talking to you. And I wish you and your co-founder the best of luck, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on.
It's my complete pleasure.
All right.
Okay. Martin, let's bring Tim in now. Tim, how are you doing? I am super duper. Let's get you onto the main screen in 1 second. There you are. Okay. Tim Darrah, co-founder, CEO at Mangrove. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you again for taking the time to do this. We wanted to have you on to talk about how AI-governed digital asset infrastructure is going to help wealth managers offer automated investment strategies with greater control and accountability. And before we do that, tell us about Mangrove, a little bit more about Mangrove.
Yeah, totally. Mangrove initially started out as a hedge fund. At the time, I was working pretty deeply in the government public sector, and I like crypto. I like day trading. Didn't have time to stare at charts, and wanted to start a hedge fund so I could continue my work and also my pastime. And one thing led to another. We went to a hedge fund conference. Some folks there kind of pushed us into the direction of a platform, and they were asking about licensing our tech. And my wife also, when I was talking to her about the hedge fund, and so my background is in AI. I'm a professor at Vanderbilt University. I teach generative AI and data science.
Yep.
I've been building AI systems my whole career, outside of the military, former NASA, former Deloitte. I say all that to say, to my wife's point, I told her I was going to start a hedge fund. She's like, "Oh, great. And remind me when you worked at Goldman Sachs."
Right.
Remind me how big your last fund was. And basically making the point that I had no chance at raising money for a hedge fund with no track record. And she was right. And she reminded me that I am a tech entrepreneur. I build AI technologies, and I should do that instead. And so Mangrove was born.
Got it.
Yeah.
God, there are so many things to say, but I don't want to get you in any trouble. Since at some level, I still don't even believe that I belong on the other end of this call, because you're just like 7,000 times more educated and smarter than I am. But let's talk about this a little bit. You do know that I did work at Goldman Sachs. Is that why you said that?
So it was a nice connector. Yeah.
Just making fun of me a little bit. Okay, fair enough. I can take it. Believe me, if you knew the kind of fun making that got made fun of me every day, this is like minor. How would you say that AI is reshaping trading and financial infrastructure from your perspective as the guy who's building the technology?
Well, I mean, I would say accessibility. It's really changing the way people have access to tools and information that they did not have access to before and never could have had access to. And like that's part of what we bring to the market with Mangrove, access to institutional grade risk management, policy enforcement, quantitative analysis that used to be kept in the coffers of the big institutions that the everyday person had no chance at ever accessing. And AI has changed that game. Along with that, it's a double-edged sword. AI has also opened the door for a lot of other things that can be disastrous when it's misused or misunderstood, which, and also the current state of the way we're the underlying infrastructure that we're building all these agentic solutions on, in my opinion, is also fundamentally flawed with respect to what we want to use it for. So, it's great, but we have a long way to go still.
Can you talk to me about this? I want to get back to the financial side of this as well, but you said something, and I just want to dig a little bit deeper. You said that the agentic stuff and the agentic systems that we're building are fundamentally flawed, particularly for the things where we're trying to implement them, the places in which they're trying to get implemented. Can you tell me where you think, again, as a guy who teaches about this stuff, but also a guy who's been involved in this stuff for a long time, and at the highest level as well, where do you think the flaws are, and what do you think has to change to, you're never going to eliminate them, but to sort of disintermediate them?
Yeah, well, so I mean, like all of the agentic solutions that we're building today were built off of the paper "Attention is All You Need" back in 2017, and that paper is a translation paper that was trying to translate German into English, and every LLM based architecture, LLMs in general, large language model, all they are sequence prediction machines. That's all they do. They're so we go from that paper in 2017, and then in 2018, we had BERT, and so that's BERT allowed fill in the blank training, and that's where we saw, okay, well, now we can transfer these representations, right? And that sort of like gave us this map, if you will, and the issue there is that a map is not the same person as a human that's reading the map. I like
for sure
talk about like an atlas versus a navigator, and with BERT, essentially our atlas started to talk, right? And then GPT-3, the 2020 paper, language models are few shot learners. That in that paper, we saw, hey, we can give an example and then it will follow our example. And the whole world mistook that as actual under the hood learning.
Right.
When really all it is it's just conditioning on a prior sample. Like we look at probabilistic, this probabilistic based system.
Yep.
And when we give it these few shot examples, we're just conditioning the output based on some prior. And that's essentially where the capabilities began to outrun the mechanism, and industry stopped tracking the difference, and like I could continue on this train of thought talking about reinforcement through learning through human feedback, and then reinforcement learning through verifiable rewards, which is the DeepSeek paper. The paper that had that in the chain of thought reasoning, the LLM like had this aha moment. All of that, the one thing that doesn't change, and that's the fact that these models are sequence prediction machines.
Right.
And that is what I'm talking about when I'm saying that we are building agentic systems on top of a model that's meant to do one thing, and we're trying to get that model to do all these other things. And I think industry and academia needs to come together and realize this, and realize that for getting back to the agentic systems, getting back to agentic finance, we need models that can plan, that can goal oriented decision making, and this is like the whole talking about reasoning gets conflated now, because we have these reasoning models, which really is just generating output that then it's feeding that reasoning in itself again, and then it's thinking about that. These models, they're the planning, the memory, the judgment, that is not in place in these LLMs, even though we think it is, because of some of the emergent properties that have been resulted.
So a couple of things, and again, I hope you don't mind getting a little bit technical with me, because I just find it really interesting, and I think it's important for people to understand actually what this stuff means. But do you think people understand that, what did you call it, a sequence prediction machine, that's actually what's happening here, that there's actually a what's the right word, that there's actually a calculated number that's associated with the possibility, right, the probability of what the next thing is going to be, and that the more parameters there are, I'm sure you saw the Kimi K3 came out, the largest open weight model ever, with 2.8 trillion parameters. Are we getting to a point now where the parameters are so voluminous that that's the advertisement itself, and then it's getting in the way of people actually understanding A, what a parameter is, but B, the implications of what having a sequence prediction machine actually is, and further, that people don't understand the probabilistic nature of the thing that they're building. So this is the flaw that they're building on top of when they try to build an agentic system that then itself is built on top of that flaw, which potentially leads to sort of unintended consequences, particularly when it comes to finance and trading.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of my thesis, that most people, they don't realize, I mean, they hear it, but realizing something and actually understanding it is different than hearing it and knowing it.
For sure.
And I think that gets to the crux of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
true agentic finance systems, really the LLM is just, what I'm building, the LLM is just the human machine interface.
Right.
All the and this goes back to, the Stanford, we could go back to, the STRIPS planner, the Stanford planner. Like,
yep.
There's all this great technology in these great decision-making frameworks, these goal-oriented behavior frameworks that have been, proven for decades, that people have seemed to have forgotten about. And it's like, no, we still need those things. We need to put those things back around, scaffolding around the LLM. And, that's like when we open up Claude Code and has these hooks, and these hooks, you give Claude or, Kimi, or choose your flavor and agent, you give it a rule that lives in a file, and you think, oh, well, it's a rule now. So now it's injected into its context. Now it follows it. I could share session after session where I've got an LLM that says, oh, that's right, that's even one of my rules, and I didn't listen to it.
Right.
And let me memory, and then it'll say, oh, right, I did that before, and I even see that in this memory. The hooks then, came about, and that sits outside of the LLM, and that actually will gate, like for me, I don't allow my coding agent to merge. Can open PRs, tag me, but I don't allow it to merge. And
when you say merge, what does that mean?
Merge.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
I implement that with a hook, and that is a policy, that's an enforcement, that's scaffolding that lives outside of the model, right? For to implement that, and I think we need to be thinking more along those lines instead of thinking about building the biggest model, like trillion, 2 point whatever it is, 2 point some trillion parameters. Like even thinking about and this is sort of getting off tangent a little bit on that. Like, babies are born with more neurons in their brains than an adult human. And there's actually, over time, for a short period of time, the number of neurons in a baby's brain does increase, right? But then it reaches this some point, within 12 to 18 months, where that number actually starts to go down. And that's because the way our brains work, like we don't need all these neurons. Some of these neurons are useless or redundant, or they detract from actual real world representation. And I think building bigger models is not the right way to go about solving some of the problems we see with LLMs.
So one of the funny quotes that I've read recently said that infants do things. So how does it go? No. It goes like this. LLMs do things, and we cheer that infants can do without even thinking about it. Something like that. So can I ask you this, though? So why have we ended up with large language models, which are fundamentally flawed according to the stuff that you're teaching me? Why have we ended up with those as sort of the basis for all of the artificial intelligence that we're using today, as opposed to some better implementation of what an artificial intelligence model should look like? And why are we dealing with the probabilistic nature of this as opposed to something that's more deterministic? And can we fix that? And in my mind, I feel like we're in such early innings here that there is the potential for these companies, and you tell me where you think I'm wrong here, but like OpenAI and Anthropic, in my mind, like both of them could go away, because you see the competition that they're having from the open weight models alone, just the Moonshot stuff and the DeepSeek stuff, but Quen and all these other models. At least being open weight gives people more of an insight into the ability to fine tune them. I'm just curious, like, why we ended up here as opposed to with some better implementation that was not as flawed.
Well, I mean, that's a great question, and I think that same question can be asked about any technological advancement at the point in time at which that technological advancement becomes the state of the art. And what I mean by that is like for example, a silly example, when we went to the moon, we went to the moon on a computer that was about as powerful as a TI-81.
Sure.
Why weren't we using something better? Because we didn't have.
Because that's what we had. That's all we had, right?
Exactly. It's like, so what I'm, I say that to say, like, we got to this point with LLMs and we saw that, the capabilities, like, these are real capabilities.
No, I get it.
They are real capabilities. And that's just sort of where we are now. The industry is sort of fixated on cramming some of these other decision-making capabilities into an LLM. But like I said, the more parameters, when you're training a transformer architecture that is meant for language translation,
Yep.
the crux is, it's very nuanced. It's very nuanced. And so, Jan LeCun, he started critiquing LLMs about a year ago, and came up with world models. And so that's sort of, also the flavor that I'm going. But even there, like, a world model by itself doesn't solve everything. And so we really need to look at heterogeneous composition of different architectures in one system. And I think folks in academia are working towards that now.
And do we need, so this heterogeneous idea is actually really interesting, right? So we need a bunch of different things that are combined together, or things that are not exactly the same working together. But do we need specific type of artificial intelligence modeling that's specific just to the financial services industry? I was reading an article today. I don't know if I'd call it an article. What's it called? Millennium is that hedge fund that's based in Long Island. Do I have that right? No, it's not Millennium. God, what is it called? Anyway.
Are you talking about Renaissance?
Renaissance, sorry. Thank you very much. Yeah, Renaissance. Thank you. Boy, I'm glad you're here. But been very successful for a bunch of different years. They write all their own trading models. Do I have that wrong? So they must be doing something right, and there must be some type of artificial intelligence involved. Not the same kind of AI that we're talking about today. But do you think that in this world of the let's call it AI 2.0 or 2.5 or 3.0, that we're going to have sort of industry-specific models, not dissimilar to the MOE, the mixture of expert stuff that we have right now, as you sort of suck that out of the larger model and just use the parameters that you want, but something more deterministic for finance, for health, for medicine, for supply chains, for all these, for drug development. Do you think we're going to get to the point where having 2.8 trillion parameters is going to feel like that's like overkill for no reason? Here's a much better, much more light, much more agile, and solves all your problems in a way that's way more efficient. Are we going to move in that direction, do you think? And is that true for the financial services industry as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And on the point, like, going back, I mean, this is another LeCun and Hinton paper. I don't work with those guys that just come up a lot.
It's fine.
Optimal brain damage, right? Like, that was a groundbreaking paper that came out way before its time, that showed that you can train a model, lots of parameters on a task, and then remove, whether it's zero weights or remove neurons. You can, that's what they call brain damage. Yep. And the lottery ticket hypothesis is another groundbreaking paper that builds on top of that. They all basically say, you give me a model with the parameter size n, I can achieve comparable performance on a fraction of n. And that has yet to be unproven. The counter to that is yet to be unproven, meaning to say that claim is absolutely true until someone, proves it false, which it hasn't, and it won't be. And also, because that's just how, like I said, as babies, that's how natural systems work as well. Now, onto your point about specific models for finance, I 100% agree with that. And I'll say, whether it's in talking about finance versus talking about, data types, like, when we talk about LLMs, the data is natural language. And, there's ontologies for that. Finance, we're really talking about numbers.
Yep.
And then there's nuances to that because, finance also is affected by policies and regulations and sort of rules of how finance operates. But basic things like profit and loss, are fundamental and have nothing policies have nothing to do with that. And Time GPT, for example, that is a transformer-based architecture model that is specifically trained on time series data.
Okay.
And so that is going in the direction of specific, LLM, even though that's not technically, we could say it's the language of numbers, language of math.
Yep.
LLMM, large language math models. Time GPT is a great example of that, because a regular LLM, it cannot reason about numbers in a fundamental way, whereas Time GPT can. Now, like your LLMs now, like Kimi or Quinn or Sonnet, or pick your flavor. You ask it a numbers problem, and under the hood, it might write some Python code to solve it. Right. That's fundamentally different than actually having
knowing and understanding it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we definitely will see industry-specific models coming out, especially related to finance. Getting into the agentic finance revolution. I'm giving a talk at a blockchain futures conference in Toronto tomorrow. Talking about the future of agentic commerce and agent-to-agent payments.
So can you talk a little bit about that before you give this speech at the conference? Is that okay? Because do you know who Yatsu is?
Yatsu?
Yeah, so Yatsu is the founder of Animoca Brands, and he is a true believer in blockchain, in Bitcoin, and in Web3. And one of the things he said, we spoke to him at Super AI in Singapore back at the beginning of June. I want to say, I can't remember, maybe in the middle of June. But one of the things he said to me was that cryptocurrency was not, at scale, was not invented for human-to-human interaction. It was really meant for machine-to-machine interaction. And that while he's been a big believer for a bunch of different reasons in Web3, one of which is identity and controlling your own identity, but also in using cryptocurrency for payments, not necessarily Bitcoin itself, but other sorts of digital currency, let's just call it programmable currencies for payments. He said it had to wait to be effective until agentic AI came out, because that's machines talking to machines. And the agentic AI, he thinks, was invented specifically to enhance and enable payments using cryptocurrency and vice versa. And that crypto had to wait to be sort of mass marketed, because humans to humans, it doesn't make any sense for them to use crypto, but machines to make micropayments and other types of payments, that's where the rubber really hits the road. And I'm curious what you think about that and where that fits into what Mangrove is building, and how the financial services industry then is going to be able to benefit from that. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, whether or not these two advances were intentional or coincidental, I'm not going to speak to.
And I don't care, actually. And I don't think you care either. Yeah, I don't care either. Yeah.
And I've got a tinfoil hat about certain things related to crypto regulation and certain things related to, lawsuits and timing of things, right? But this isn't that. We're not putting our tinfoil hats on right now.
No. And he wasn't doing that either. He was just like, he felt fortunate because he was like, wow, finally I can actually use the stuff that I want, because somebody else invented something else, not for me, but now that it's there, now that I know that that's going to work, is really the point he was trying to make. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And the stable coins and X402. We can talk about X402 for a second as we talk about this. Everyone has heard of 404, error, page not found. That's
right.
AGTP protocol that was made in the 1990s. 402 was error, payment required, and it was there in the 90s, but no one had a use for it to make it work.
Yeah.
And when everyone's using credit card checkouts where we're all manually entering our our numbers, and then the CVV code, let me actually look at my card again. Like that 402 did not matter, right? But then we get into this world where, like, oh my gosh, like, we have these powerful AI models that I can tell it to go buy ETH when the RSI gets below a certain amount and it's looking like a mean reversion setup.
Right.
Or I can say, hey, go to this website. I'm looking for a pair of Gucci loafers size 10.5.
Good for you, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah. And that's when we get 402 matters and stable coins matter, because then, the whole thing with payment systems, when we realize it, there's authentication and authorization. And so authentication is, are you who you say you are? When I log into Amazon, I am authenticating who I am with a password, with my username and password. And then when I go to checkout, either I select a card that I already have. Sometimes it makes me re-enter my CVV number. Sometimes not. But then when I press play, press pay, that's the authorization piece. And for the first time ever, and he's exactly right, with agents, you can combine those two things together. But in order to make it useful, you need programmable money, stable coins, on a new protocol, X402, that combines authentication and authorization in one step for an agentic system. And that really is the true, revolution. And separating cryptocurrency from AI, and then not going too down the rabbit hole of what's crypto versus digital assets. Now we have NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. Everything's getting tokenized. Just came out DTCC. They're tokenizing the Qs. Everything's getting tokenized, and people. I try to tell people, like, hey, Mangrove, we're not a crypto company. Right. We're an AI and financial tech, fintech company, is really what we are. And try to have to educate people not to get hung up on this quote unquote crypto word. It's the underlying technology that really is powerful.
It's a distraction, right? Without any sort of distinction, if you know what I mean. Like, people hear crypto and they just think, oh, that's a different thing that I want to be involved in. Whereas, if you just tell them it's a fintech, I don't know. It sounds like a different story. Can I ask you this? What's the big benefit to tokenizing the Qs?
Proving it out.
Proving what though?
Proving that the technology works at scale and solves the problem that we say it solves.
What is that problem? That's what I want to know.
Well, so one of them is in settlement, and this traces its roots. So there's sort of like two kind of like lines of issue. One of them is in settlement, and one of them is in trust with cross-border payments, and really settlement kind of also encapsulates trust. So back in the day, decades ago, T+5.
I don't remember that. I remember T+3 is fine with me, but okay.
T+5 was before my day, obviously, too. But then it was T+2 for the longest time in my memory, and then the last few years it's been T+1, and there are issues with sort of liquidity, and then when you have T+1 settlement, then you get into cases where banks need to do overnight lending, and then so there's inherent risk when things aren't instantly settled, and so that really gets to the core of the problem. When things are not instantly settled, someone is holding risk, someone is liable if something goes wrong. That's one thing. Instant settlement alleviates that, and the other thing has to do with cross-border payments. And the way our system is set up today, if I want to if I want to buy, I use an example of Russia and India. Russia, they both need to have banks in the other countries, and so and we don't have to use Russia and India. We can use the United States and Great Britain, right? Whatever, two countries, they have to have banks in the opposite country. And so when I make a payment, my payment goes from my U.S. bank in the United States, these what's called these Novosotros accounts, to a U.S. bank in the other country, and there it gets converted, and then finally once it gets converted, it gets paid to the actual person that I'm paying. And so there's a lot of steps in that process, and there are a lot of fees that are collected from all the hands that touch that process.
Yep.
And blockchain technology solves that problem as well.
So, but how does tokenization solve that? Like, I get the stablecoin thing, that there are fewer jumps, right? And I have so many questions about stablecoins that I asked you, and no one's actually given me a satisfying answer about this. But how does tokenization solve that international payment problem?
So tokenization, well, so there's two things. Like when we talk about tokenization, we're talking about tokenization of assets.
Yep.
That is a settlement problem. Okay.
Can we not have instantaneous settlement without these things being tokenized?
You know, if we could, we would have done it by now.
Okay.
I think the reason why we can is because in order to do that, you need to have that distributed ledger, because otherwise you're still trusting a central authority, to tell you the final result. So that, I mean, that and that's why I say it goes back to the underlying technology. The underlying blockchain technology is a distributed ledger. That's it. It's very simple. It's a distributed ledger. There's a network of ledgers. They all talk to each other. They all solve the Byzantine's general problem. They all agree on the outcome, and it all happens in on the XRP ledger. It's seconds or less. Bitcoin, it's 10 minutes. ETH and Solana, it's somewhere in between. Doesn't really matter. 10 minutes is 10 minutes may as well be instant when the when the alternative is next day and you have to trust someone, and that's someone that you trust. They are holding the liability for the risk that something goes wrong. Got it.
Have we had? Look, I traded equities and fixed income securities. I traded a whole bunch of other stuff as well, but I never had a problem with DTCC, nor with DTC. And I'm just curious, like, are people not trusting that anymore and requiring it to be sitting on a distributed ledger? Or do we just think that, like, it's a new generation thing where they have this sort of trustless idea that I don't trust anybody, so I want to have something that sits on the blockchain that gets verified in a way that has nothing to do with DTCC? I'm just trying to figure out, like, why things that we've trusted up until now, we no longer trust.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think part of it is a new generation, part of it's new technology. And, I will also say, when you are using a distributed ledger, you're using a blockchain.
Yep.
That's also less for like you as an organization to be solely responsible for. Like, if all transactions are happening on chain, then that means that there's a lot of database infrastructure. We still need databases. We still need that infrastructure. Yep. But there's a lot that I don't have to be critically solely responsible for. So, and that, again, is sort of like the other side of trust, which I think people, I don't think people distrust the DTC or DTCC. I don't think that's the problem. I think really it's, they being the DTCC and the DTC, they see this as a way to sort of offload some of the risk that they are holding by being the ultimate arbiter of settlement.
Got it. And what is the impact of all of this new technology on what Mangrove is building? Where does that all fit in?
Yeah, well, we're building where the puck is going. And what I mean by that is, like, right now we're announcing a Kraken integration today. We have a non-custodial on-chain smart contract that you can automate your trading through without having to sign every transaction. And we're building where the puck is going, which is all assets eventually are going to be tokenized.
Probably.
And and so we're building our technology predicated on the fact that, like, for example, the U.S. private wealth industry, $144 trillion right now, as of this statistic was back in April. And when we look at what RIAs and private wealth advisors are moving to, they're looking at allocating 5% to digital assets. So that's $7 trillion. $7 trillion looking for a way to come on chain, and we're building an ecosystem to help those people, affect that transition.
Got it. That's a big job. It's a gigantic job.
Yeah. And it's not, it's not one that we're, doing solely. Like there are a lot of people building a lot of, and I look at like, I see things through, like a circuit or through plumbing, $7 trillion, that's a tsunami. Right now, we have infrastructure, we can handle the digital asset industry right now. We can't handle that. There's not enough places for all that to go. Obviously your big ones, Coinbase and Robinhood, they're going to take a lot. They're going to take that market share, but there's the pie itself is growing.
Yep.
So it's not that we're competing. We're not all competing for the same market share. There's market share continues to be added to the pie every day.
Got it. Okay, Tim, look, I've taken up way too much of your time tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. I really appreciate you running through a whole bunch of this stuff with us. It's been very informative for me. Again, thank you so much for coming and doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate the time. And good luck.
Keep in touch, man.
Yeah, we'll do. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for AGTP today. Thank you again for joining us. As Martin said, we'll be back every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. in the United States. Give us a thumbs up on today's video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of our socials on X, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. And as always, let us know in the comments if you have any questions. Thank you to everybody who's joined us today. We will be back again on Thursday at 10 a.m. Thank you again to Martin. My name is Michael Waitz. Goodbye for now.